those years as a superhero in Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1151 Arc Mutation. In fact, for this world, the most fundamental contradiction lies in the depletion of world energy. Because the depletion of resources has led to the chaos of the entire social order, and various contradictions have emerged. In fact, in this world, the Alchemy Group and Norman Osborn can still control the world. The most important point is that Norman's company still controls the global shale oil mining. This is the last oil and gas resource left on the Earth. Leiji has been in this world for a few days and has a certain understanding of the energy supply of this world. Because he controls and monopolizes the last shale oil mining, Norman can still control this world. But shale oil mining can only last for 30 years at most. If there is no new energy that can be fully replaced after 30 years, then this world will fall into dead silence. This is also the main contradiction of this world. In the secret base of Mr. Plain Man, Leiji told these guys about the main contradiction of this world. Yes, we know everything you said. Mr. Plain Man is still two-dimensional and stuck on the wall. He turned himself into a poster of Squirrel Girl and said, "New energy is very important. Without new energy, we will all die. Everyone knows this. The Earth will be finished in 30 years. Relying solely on wind energy, solar energy, geothermal energy and other energy sources is not enough." Miguel also nodded, "We know all this. The global population is now over 11.5 billion. If we only rely on solar energy, water conservancy, geothermal energy, wind energy and other new energy sources, we can't feed everyone in the world. According to my calculations, if there is no oil as a supplement to energy, and only relying on these renewable energy sources, the Earth can only feed 1.5 billion people at most. Although life in the United States is not very good now, it can't be compared with 50 years ago. But at least people living in this country can continue to use electricity and gasoline as long as they can afford the fees. There is also a complete public system, although it is getting more and more expensive. But at least it is better than nothing. If you want to cover the life and expenses of Americans with food and accommodation, then I have calculated. There can only be 500 million people in the world. In this way, energy can meet the conditions of use and enter a renewable cycle system. Miguel said an astonishing number. If you're calculated this way, unless we start a massacre of the other 11 billion people in the world, the energy consumption will never be enough. This number is a bit scary. We need to kill more than 97% of the world's population to restore the energy supply level to normal. Miguel and others looked unhappy. Leiji curled his lips. From this point of view, family planning is really necessary. Seeing the miserable situation of this world, Leiji felt that he would have to discuss it with Tony, Dr. Hank and other scientists after returning. About the issue of population control. Now the Earth in my world has more than 7 billion people. If it weren't for Tony's discovery of new energy and the moon mining plan, the Earth would have taken a step towards extraterrestrial exploration. Otherwise, my world would not be much better in a few decades. What happened here also reminded Leiji how important population birth control is. The resources of the universe are not unlimited, and there must be a balance of regeneration. Just like the Skrulls, although they occupy so many resources, their population is not as large as that of the Earth. In fact, they are also maintaining a balance when they demand resources. They control the population to improve the quality of life. And it also maintains the resource renewability of the Andromeda Galaxy, achieving a relatively balanced cycle. It is not without reason that the Skrulls are called advanced civilizations. Although it seems that the Earth in their own world is still far from this step, the leaders of the Illuminati are all far-sighted people. To use a high-level word to describe them, they are all people who bring peace to the world. Since Leiji has seen the consequences of the imbalanced energy supply and population explosion in this world, he will never allow his world to embark on such an old path. In the future, we must calculate the relationship between population size and energy regeneration to achieve resource renewability. Leiji thought of what he needs to do when he returns to the world. However, he must first solve the problems of this world, get the thing that seems to be an infinite gem, and then save the world by the way. Miguel and the others don't have any good ideas to break the situation now, because they can't deal with Norman. Kill him directly? It's unrealistic, not to mention that Norman himself is very strong. Just looking at the large number of massacre replicas he has made now, it can be concluded that his superhero replication plan may have succeeded. He may be accompanied by a large number of replicated superheroes. Most of the assassinations by himself and others would fail. So if we want to eliminate Norman Osborn, eradicate his Osborn Group and Alchemy Corporation, we must cut him off at the root. Lee G put forward his own opinion. Root? What root do you mean? Captain America Roberta frowned. Energy. Lee G's words seemed to have returned to the starting point. But unlike Miguel and others, Lee G is really capable of solving the energy problem of this world. Don't forget, there is a world behind Lee G. There is also a group of the most outstanding scientists. Lee G doesn't even need to ask Tony for the production materials of the arc reactor. In Lee G's cognition, he knows that at least 3 people in this world of his own master the production method of the arc reactor. Tony, needless to say, is the founder. The arc reactor has been constantly updated in his hands, and the 7th version is currently being tested in the laboratory. Dr. Ethan masters the manufacture of the first generation of the arc reactor, which he and Tony once jointly manufactured. There is also one in the hands of Dr. Doom. He got the arc reactor made by Ivan from the whip chain Ivan. Ivan's father used to be a colleague of Tony's father, and the earliest idea of the arc reactor was proposed by his father. Later, due to various reasons, Ivan's father made a mistake and was sent back to his original country. Until Ivan remade the arc reactor and prepared to make trouble for Tony, his invention was favored by Doom. So Doom took it directly for research. Although the arc reactor studied by Ivan is much different from Tony's in energy level. But Doom, who obtained this prototype, is a scientist who is many times more powerful than Ivan. He made various improvements on Ivan's original model. When Lee G traveled back to his own world to find Doom and asked him about the arc reactor, Doom thought for a moment and said, "How many variants of the arc reactor have I made? About 300 or 400. Huh? You want a variant that is least like the arc reactor? Wait, I'll find it for you." Dr. Doom went to his warehouse and rummaged through a pile of scrap metal for a long time. He found something that was about the size of a searchlight. "What do you want this thing for? Nightwalker? Huh? Are you going to save the world again? You're so idle. I tell you that the meaning of life is explosion." Facing Lee G's receding back, Dr. Doom emphasized, "Explosion is art, art is explosion. It's better to make a big explosion than to save the world." Chapter 1152 Human Purification Plan. In a mysterious research institute somewhere in the United States, Norman Osborn was looking at a report with a frown on his face. This report was not good news. Instead, it told him that the new energy they had discovered, or more precisely, a special gem that was suitable as a carrier of new energy, had an internal composition that could not be replicated. At least, human science and technology could not replicate it now. Some people say that the end of science is theology. As long as the technology is high enough, people can be no different from gods. This statement does make sense from some perspectives. Just like the gem that he found accidentally, it has abundant energy. It is hard to imagine who can compress that powerful energy into a gem. If this gem can be replicated on a large scale, perhaps the new energy will be found. But unfortunately, this report gave Norman Osborn bad news. It has been 79 years since Norman Osborn eliminated the last superhero of his era. A lot of things have happened in these 79 years, but the biggest change is for Norman Osborn personally and the Osborn Group. That is, Norman Osborn's control over the world is getting stronger and stronger. He holds the world firmly in his hands, just like his own toy. He controls the life and death of most people. He controls the economic lifeline of the world. The feeling of power is very good. Norman likes this feeling. Norman even doubts that he can still maintain a young and vigorous state of life. In addition to the effects of the infinite serum, what is more important is the nourishment brought to him by power. Norman is obsessed with power and can no longer lose power. Power is probably the most addictive drug in the world. Far more than any other so-called hallucinogen. As long as you have tasted the taste of power, few people can resist and give up the temptation brought by this taste. But now, Norman Osborn's power has been challenged. He has to cheer up to deal with it. This challenge does not come from those resistance organizers such as Spider-Man and Captain America. For Norman Osborn, these are just minor problems. It's not a big deal. If he is willing to draw out most of his strength to deal with these rebels, then these rebels will not be able to jump down. But he had no way to mobilize most of his power here. Because for Norman Osborn, he had a job that required him to mobilize his power, that is, to study new energy. The energy problem was the real thorny problem that he had to face. If there was no energy in this world, then the world would return to silence. How could there be power in a world where everyone was dead? Thinking of this, Norman Osborn suddenly hated and disliked Tony Stark. It was all because of this guy's selfishness. He refused to disclose the manufacturing method of the arc energy until his death. Even if this guy died, he would drag the whole world to be buried with him. What kind of superhero is this? Now I have to clean up his mess myself. Is there anything wrong? Shouldn't a superhero do all these things well? This guy destroyed the world, and it was all Tony Stark's fault. Norman Osborn pounded the table hard. He attributed the fault to Tony Stark. But he forgot who killed Tony Stark in the first place. Anyway, Tony Stark is dead now, and there is no way to jump out of the grave and confront Norman Osborn on the spot. Who destroyed the world? Finding a dead person to take the blame is the most suitable. Anyway, even if Tony Stark is dead and has crossed different universes, he must take the blame. In fact, the Osborn Group has also studied many new energy plans. For example, Dr. Octopus once proposed the concept of studying an artificial sun. However, this plan failed in the end, and Dr. Octopus and his artificial sun sank to the bottom of the sea. Norman also sank with nearly $3 billion in funds and equipment. After that, there was no substantial breakthrough in new energy projects. Because scientific research is sometimes like an artist composing a song, it requires inspiration. Edison once said, "Genius is 99% sweat plus 1% inspiration, and if there is number 1% inspiration, the previous 99% sweat is meaningless." This is the picture of new energy projects. Without a genius's flash of inspiration, no matter how much research is done, sometimes it may be useless. In the past 20 years, Norman Osborn has spent a lot of money on new energy, but the harvest is very little. Although a lot of progress has been made in wind energy, solar energy, geothermal water and ground effect energy. But it is still difficult to maintain the current huge energy expenditure on the Earth. Norman Osborn has also calculated that if the world wants to keep running normally and reach a balance, then the global population should be controlled at around 700 million. His calculation is slightly more than McWill's calculation. But this is not much better. For more than 10 billion people in the world, the chance of survival of 200 million more is still too small. New energy projects have been slow to make progress, and existing energy is being consumed day by day. Everyone knows that the days when shale oil can be mined will not last long. Now Norman can still control this world. A very important point is that he controls the mining of shale oil. If the world has exhausted the mining of shale oil, then his power may be unbalanced. By then, it will be a doomsday scene, and everyone will struggle to survive. Can I still manage most of the world like this? I'm afraid the whole world will be in chaos. Norman shook his head in his heart. He sighed and said, "I really don't want to sign this order." With this, Norman took out a thick document from his desk drawer. But the Earth has come to this day and can no longer accommodate so many people. I must control the population to about 700 million. In order to maintain the continuation of human civilization, I have to make such a painful decision. If anyone dies from this decision, please don't blame me anymore. Norman Osborn looked compassionate. This is not my fault. Blame Tony Stark. His selfishness brought this world to the grave, and I am the savior of this world. Saying this, Norman signed his name on a command contract and stamped it. And if you look at the heading of this contract and agreement, you will see a line of big words written on it, Human Purification Plan. Chapter 1153 Undercurrent. 2099, Norman Osborn has decided to carry out a human cleansing operation. The Earth can no longer support so many humans. Then the only way is to get rid of the extra humans, and only in this way can he continue to rule the world smoothly. However, killing humans is also a technical job. Because there are 11.5 billion humans in the world, he can only keep 700 million people, and the remaining 10.8 billion must be killed. If this plan is leaked, his rule will be unstable immediately. Even if he has a group of copy heroes. But he can't stand being trapped in the vast ocean of the masses. So Norman needs to carry out his human purification plan more secretly, at least direct massacres are not possible. Norman decided to create a terrible epidemic and use the epidemic to eliminate the extra humans bit by bit. For example, it takes 3 years to eliminate 5 billion people, and another 3 years to eliminate more than 5 billion people. In this way, it is secret enough, and no one knows that all this is done by himself. You know, the alchemy group under his control is the main medical service provider for the world now. When he produces a special medicine to treat the disease depends entirely on his mood. If you need a miracle drug, then it will appear. If you don't want a miracle drug, then it won't appear. Of course, Norman is not stupid. He knows that the world cannot simply rely on the so-called elites to continue to operate. Norman remembered an old movie Kingsman from his era. In the first part, the villain decided to eliminate most of the people in the world to purify the world, leaving only the so-called elites. But the villain forgot that the elites couldn't do dirty and tiring work as industrial workers and farmers. The main reason why Norman can still remember this old movie after so many years is that the villain in the first part looks very similar to the director of SHIELD at that time, the one-eyed Nick Fury. In the new world set by Norman, the so-called elites will be retained a little, but not too much. Because the so-called elites are very troublesome, they are thinking about sharing their power and wealth all day long. These people are too annoying, and Norman decided to kill all the other elites except for a small number of obedient and honest elites to maintain basic operations. I need to keep some researchers who are dedicated to scientific research, honest and naive. There are also a large number of industrial workers and farmers, which are the main groups that Norman needs to keep. The lower class people are always easy to control, and these people are indispensable for the maintenance of the foundation of society. Question: why doesn't Norman use a large number of robots to replace human labor in the world of 2099? Answer: because robots consume a lot of resources. A person consumes 30 steamed buns for 100 kilometers on foot, and a car consumes 10 liters of gasoline for 100 kilometers. Although this metaphor is somewhat inappropriate and one-sided. But in some ways, human power can sometimes save more resources than mechanical power. Norman remembers the appearance of those industrial workers in the early 21st century. They can do a lot of heavy work, unlike many industrial workers now who don't do particularly heavy work. The limit of human beings is higher than these people think. In the future, they need to work hard to survive. Otherwise, the continuation of human civilization will be bad. Norman feels that he is saving the world. And Norman's operation to save the Earth has actually begun to be implemented after he signed his secret order. After all, it is not easy to eliminate 5 billion people in 3 years. Every second must be seized, otherwise it will be too late. Of course, according to Norman's requirements, first a hard-to-cure virulent disease began to spread among the elites. The first to spread were the group of people who played virtual economy. In the new world planned by Norman, there is no place for these people. At least not at the beginning, and it depends on whether there is a need in the future. Norman requires a new world with a stronger industrial atmosphere, and everyone goes to work. Except for himself, there should be no so-called capitalist class in this world. In the new world, there is only one bourgeoisie, and everyone else should live in a relatively equal communist class. In this way, the world will be more peaceful. Then Norman spread the virulent virus to the elites in the political and business circles. These people think about delegating power from themselves all day long, and they are so annoyed. It is best for these so-called elites to die cleanly. The first people to spread are these two categories, but Norman did not start to consider spreading the disease first. Because it is very simple to deal with the bottom people, and he has more than 100 ways to deal with them. As long as there is no so-called elite class to incite the bottom people are not a concern. Norman thought very clearly. His plan has already begun. Of course, if any virulent disease wants to spread, it cannot prioritize the lethal gene, but the spreading gene. Norman was not prepared to kill a group of people first. In fact, the virulent disease he pointed out was just a trigger. To really make these virulent diseases burst out with a threat of death, another medicine was needed. And this medicine would only be used when Norman felt the time was right. So when Li Ji brought the arc reactor, which was the least like the arc made by Dr. Doom, a thing that looked like a searchlight, to the world of 2099, he saw in the news that a severe influenza was sweeping the country and spreading everywhere. In order to prevent himself and his friends from contracting the influenza of 2099, because who knows what the influenza of 2099 will mutate into, and it might be a super virus if brought back to their own world, Li Ji and others took layers of precautions. Is this the artifact you said to break Norman's situation? Mikwo looked left and right, and felt that what Li Ji brought looked like a searchlight. Yes, that's it. Although it looks like a searchlight, it's actually a very powerful reactor. Li Ji patted the reactor variant given by Doom. How do you use this thing? Roberta, the female captain of the United States, also came over, and the other Great Lake Avengers were also very curious. Li Ji only now knew that Mr. Immortal and others called their own team the Great Lake Avengers in order to pay tribute to the Avengers of the Year. Li Ji took out a ring from his pocket, along with an instruction manual. Wait, let me take a look at the instruction manual first. Oh, before using this thing, you have to use a password to open it, and then you can charge this ring. The charge ring is a mobile power station that can be used to supply various energy sources. Let me see what the startup password is. I got it. Li Ji flipped through the instruction manual written by Doom and found the usage of the mutant brothers who used this arc reactor. He began to read the startup command of the reactor loudly. The day is bright, the night is dark. There is no place for evil spirits to hide. Dissenters and rebels fear my divine light. The green light is always on, the light of eternity. Turn on. Li Ji gently hit the reactor like a searchlight with his ring, and the reactor immediately ignited and started. A green light shot into the ring on Li Ji's hand, and the ring also emitted a green light. This is a light, green energy. Chapter 1154, Forming the Green Lantern Core. When Li Ji finished reading the command, the reactor that looked like a searchlight began to work. And unlike the arc reactor designed by Tony, this reactor actually released a green light after ignition. And charging the ring on Li Ji's hand also charged a green light. This thing is really unscientific, but it feels inexplicably magical. Li Ji thought to himself, because for the arc reactor designed by Tony, this thing designed by Doom is really full of a sense of middle school second year. First of all, not to mention the weird shape of this reactor, just after starting it, you need to recite a long string of lines like Kamen Rider's transformation, which is very embarrassing. This is like the armor designed by Tony for Thor, which requires you to shout Dragon Warrior, turn deeper, before using it. Li Ji doubted whether all super scientists were influenced by various animations, movies, and TV series of middle school second-year mecha, special effects, and masked heroes in their childhood. Otherwise, he really couldn't explain why Tony and Doom were so talented in designing these middle school second-year and shameful things. And Li Ji had to emphasize that the light from this thing was actually green. Well, he knew that Doom really liked green. For example, when he wore the steel armor he made, he would wear a cape, which was green. And he would also wear a hood, which was also green. In addition, his beloved was also robbed. Li Ji looked at the reactor emitting green light and the green light ring on his hand, and felt a little sympathy for Doom for no reason. Maybe the green light will follow Doom for the rest of his life. Li Ji thought so in his heart, but his hand did not stop moving. He handed the green ring on his hand to Miguel and said, "I'll give you this ring. I can teach you how to use this thing." In fact, the green light energy made by Doom is actually a little different from Tony's arc, and it is not a complete copy of it. For example, the way of transporting energy is completely different. Tony's arc energy has designed a complex but efficient energy transport design. But Doom's green light energy is more of an experimental thing, so Doom tried a special way of energy transmission. That is wireless transmission. This is a concept first proposed by Tesla, which uses electromagnetic frequency bands for wireless transmission. If successful, then energy consumption will be greatly reduced, and some people may even get unlimited energy or something. However, Doom's design cannot get unlimited energy, because perpetual motion machines do not exist in this world. And the distance of this wireless transmission is still very short, so short that it can only be transmitted wirelessly within 2 meters. Doom has not yet completed the long-distance wireless transmission experiment. But if it succeeds, it will set off another revolution. However, as a test product, green light energy can charge the ring, and the ring can charge other things in the home that need electricity. Of course, this requires some small modifications to household appliances. However, these modifications are not very troublesome. Doom has designed some energy receivers that allow these things to receive energy transmitted by the ring. It can be said that green light energy is a work that Doom uses for games. More often, it may be used to satisfy some special desires that are difficult to express in Doom's heart. Therefore, green light energy still has various imperfect effects. For example, the ring is used as an energy carrier, But the ring cannot carry a lot of energy. Generally, it is enough for a family of 5 to use electricity for 72 hours without interruption. Or it can drive an electric car for about 300 kilometers. Compared with Tony's arc reactor, which can be used for dozens or hundreds of years, even the arc battery can support the electricity expenses of a family of 5 for more than half a year. Doom's green light energy has its flaws. But at the same time, this green light energy also has its advantages. That is, it is not necessary for every family to buy a green light energy furnace. Because the cost of the energy furnace is very high, whether it is a green light energy furnace or an arc reactor, it is not affordable for ordinary civilians. Even the arc battery is actually very expensive. Now in Liji's world, the United States is fully transforming the old power grid, and there are financial subsidies for the public to buy arc batteries to replace the old energy. This is the American version of sending electricity to the city. There is no such trouble when using green light energy. It is entirely possible to install only one green light energy furnace in a community of 50,000 to 100,000 people, and then everyone will buy a green light ring. Then use the green light ring to charge, and then go home to use it. This way the cost price is reduced. The use of this green light energy is very suitable for the 2099 world that is about to collapse, and the nuclear raw materials used by green light energy are still the old batch of nuclear raw materials, not helium-3. Otherwise, the 2099 world that has not mined helium-3 will go crazy, because they now have no way to build a spaceship that can quickly transport a large amount of ore back and forth between the Earth and the Moon. Liji told Miguel and others a lot about the benefits of green light energy in one breath, and finally said, "Of course, just one green light can't save this world. In fact, I also brought the design drawings with me. I think, Miguel, you should be able to find some scientists who oppose Norman like you. You can study this drawing together and finally create a new energy source that can overthrow Norman." Liji showed off the design drawings that Doom found in his own garbage dump as a high-end and classy treasure. When the Great Lakes Avengers heard what Liji said, everyone couldn't help but take a breath. If what Liji said is true, then as long as the green light energy begins to be laid out on a large scale, then Norman and his evil company will be completely finished. But there is one thing Miguel must clarify, he asked, "Where did you get these things?" Miguel's eyes were full of suspicion. Because after Tony Stark's death, the development of new energy has not made any progress. If there were new energy earlier, the world would not have fallen to this point. In fact, this thing is the arc reactor designed by Tony Stark back then. Or it can be said that it is a variant of the arc. Liji swore to the sky that he was telling the truth, at least these two sentences were true. In fact, he left some very incomplete information. It was preserved by our teacher. Then our teacher Ancient One spent decades replicating it, and now he has finally replicated this arc reactor. Now we think it's time to take it out. In Liji's description, the image of Master Ancient One is getting taller and taller. Not only is he a hermit master, but also a top scientist. I really want to meet Master Ancient One now. Captain Roberta of the United States admired him. Liji smiled and did not comment. He continued the topic, "But now we have the artifact, but we need an opportunity to set off a wave of change. How can we replicate these green lanterns around the world and completely shake Norman?" Miguel and Captain America Roberta looked at each other, and then said together, "Go to the east, there are still resistance forces there. We can use the power of the east to make enough green lanterns, and then let the green lanterns defeat Norman and his evil company like the Corps. Yes. Use the Green Lantern Corps to completely defeat Norman." Miguel and Captain America Roberta said this. Although using the Green Lantern Corps to defeat Norman made Liji feel a little strange, as if something was wrong, but it seemed that nothing was wrong. Liji could only scratch his head. Well, what power is there in the east? Liji's question was answered by Mr. Flatman, who posted himself on the wall and turned into a poster. Then the poster changed into the appearance of a strong man. The poster transformed by Mr. Flatman spoke, "The last power of the east, Wan's Hongxia." Chapter 1155, Things Under the Sea. Wan's Hongxia is very busy in China. Even with countless clones, he is still busy. But when Miguel called, Wan's Hongxia still answered his call. "Miguel, what's the matter? Do you know that I'm very busy here now?" Wan's Hongxia was not kidding, he was really busy. He was so busy that he didn't even have time to rest. Because now China can be said to be unable to play in many places without Wan's Hongxia. He split himself into countless shadow clones, and then entered various important fields to work. Whether it is research projects or security patrols. Now China really can't do without him. Listen, Tao Yuhan, I have a very important thing to give you. This thing is very important. But I can't explain it directly on the phone because I'm afraid that the information will be leaked. But I promise that with this thing, we can change the world. I need your ability. Miguel didn't directly leak the matter of green light energy. But he vaguely mentioned a little bit. This very obscure conversation made Wan's Hongsha think again and again, and finally decided to go to the United States quietly. In the United States, Miguel, Roberta and the Great Lakes Avengers have been making various preparations. Science is sometimes just a layer of window paper, and Miguel could not see through many things about new energy. But when Li Ji brought Doom's design drawings and showed them to him, Miguel found that many things in this world have actually touched the edge, but he just couldn't find the key to open the door. Doom's design drawings are like a key to open the door, instantly opening up many things that he hadn't figured out before. So Miguel has actually been trying to start producing green light energy, and Roberta and the Great Lakes Avengers have also begun to help him find various raw materials and equipment. The production of Green Lantern rings is not difficult for the technology of the 2099 world, and many things can be made ready. Miguel only needs to make a slight change. The only problem that bothers Miguel now is the production of Green Lanterns. If they want to overthrow Norman Osborn's rule over this world, then they need a lot of Green Lantern energy and Green Lantern rings. And if they want to mobilize so much energy, it is definitely not enough for Miguel and his team alone. And even if they made it, it would be a big trouble for them to distribute it. Norman Osborn would not allow them to sell this thing openly on the street. So they thought of asking the Chinese Wan's Hongsha for help. Li Ji did not comment on Miguel's proposal. No matter who makes and sells it, as long as it can save the world, it is a good thing, isn't it? And Li Ji is also very curious about this Wan's Hongsha who claims to be able to mobilize 1 billion divine powers. According to Miguel's introduction to Wan's Hongsha, this person is really strong. He can mobilize the power of 1 billion Chinese people. Of course, there are side effects. For example, he mobilized the power of those people and those people would be unable to work temporarily. To make an inappropriate analogy, if he borrowed power from 1 billion people and each person borrowed 100 kilograms of power, then each Chinese person would lose 100 kilograms of power. So when Wan's Hongsha borrowed the power of these people, these Chinese people might not be able to do any other physical labor. So Wan's Hongsha must control the time and amount of borrowing power very well. Otherwise, he could put the country into a state of shock for a period of time. If a country enters a state of shock for too long, it is not a good thing. When Li Ji met Wan's Hongsha, he found that Wan's Hongsha was really not good looking. A standard Asian square-faced, middle-aged man, except for his strong body, there was nothing special about him. However, when Miguel told Wan's Hongsha about Green Lantern energy and asked him for help, Wan's Hongsha immediately realized how important this matter was. Because eliminating Norman Osborn and his various group companies is almost a global problem. No one can be immune. Wan's Hongsha agreed to help, and mobilized a lot of resources from China, and he himself also split into many clones to invest in the intense production of Green Lantern energy. After things here become regular, Li Ji can't stay in this world forever. Because it takes a certain amount of time to break this plan, only when the output of Green Lantern energy reaches a certain level, these people can shake Norman Osborn's rule over this world. Then he broke through and saved this world while taking away the things similar to the Infinity Stone. So Li Ji planned to go back to his own world first and come back after a while. Of course, Lan also followed Li Ji. But Brian and Strange were left in this world by him. Because aren't they still in the state of cultivation now? This world of 2099 is full of dangers, but the dangers are not particularly fatal. With the strength of Strange and Brian, they can still deal with it. So practicing in this world and helping Miguel save the world by the way is the best test for them. And after saving the world, the two will also have a corresponding sense of pride, right? This can enhance their self-confidence, Li Ji said. As for whether he wants to get rid of the two soy sauce bottles, it is hard to say. And Li Ji wants to go back to his own world because of a small incident in his original world. That was the last time he came back to get the green light energy from Doom. Peter Parker sent him a message saying that Mindy and Laura found a workshop selling pirated X-beauty potions. Li Ji was still very concerned about this matter. Although the things in the 2099 world were important, The things in his own world were undoubtedly more important. So after Lee Ji returned to his original world, he found Parker, who was still studying the pirated X potion. Parker was analyzing the pirated potion in the headquarters of the Night Watch. "Oh, where have you been these days? I've been sending you messages." The first sentence Parker said when he saw Lee Ji was to complain, "Do you know? The pirated potion found by Mindy and Laura is very suspicious. I seem to have seen its ingredients, but now I forgot where I saw it. The most troublesome thing now is that we don't know what side effects it has. Maybe you should find Iron Man and tell him to start a comprehensive crackdown on the production of this potion." As soon as he saw Lee Ji, Parker's mouth started to shoot like a Gatling gun. Lee Ji shrugged helplessly. When he was about to speak, Mindy suddenly ran into the laboratory of the Night Watch base and said to the two of them, "Come out quickly, there's big news. You should see it." Lee Ji and Parker looked at each other and went to the living room of the Night Watch headquarters. The Night Watchmen are now sitting around the TV, watching a special news broadcast. At 2 p.m. New York time today, an unusually strong geological fluctuation occurred in the Atlantic Ocean. Some scientists believe that it may be a sign of the Haiti earthquake. Emergency evacuation notices have been issued to 25 countries in the surrounding waters. Our reporters are currently broadcasting live in the sea area. The picture on the TV turned to the live broadcast picture. A reporter on the scene on the helicopter said in amazement, "God, I can't believe what I saw. This is definitely not an earthquake, ladies and gentlemen. I promise God that this is definitely not an earthquake. There is something under the sea, and it is now floating up. George, don't shoot me. Use your camera to shoot the sea surface. This is what the audience should see now." The reporter on the scene urged the photographer. The photographer changed the lens and changed the picture to the sea surface. Only a huge, obviously man-made submarine base was seen slowly floating up in the picture. What is this thing? Who built it? Why did it float to the surface? A long string of question marks appeared in the minds of the audience in front of the TV. Chapter 1156, Debt Collection. What exactly is this thing that suddenly emerged from the seabed? Everyone has this question. Because even without the so-called experts on the scene to analyze, TV viewers including Lee Ji can tell that this is a man-made structure just by looking at the thing that emerged. "This looks like the dome of a building." Big Daddy said uncertainly in front of the TV, "What the hell is this thing? Why did it come out directly from the bottom of the sea? When did such a thing appear on our seabed?" Facing Big Daddy's question, Punisher Frank, who has a good relationship with Big Daddy, said, "We know very little about the ocean. It is said that there is less than in the universe. Of course, sometimes what scientists say is not necessarily correct, and sometimes experts fart. Just like before the aliens attacked the Earth, many experts vowed that humans might not be able to come into contact with alien civilizations in this century. No alien civilization has ever visited the Earth. Look at what is happening now, it's really bullshit. SWORD has established a Men in Black agency. In fact, there are at least thousands of interstellar refugees of various kinds on the Earth. Some of them have been on Earth for hundreds of years, and Captain Rogers must coordinate the numbering and management of these aliens." Frank said these words while opening a bottle of beer and taking a big sip. So sometimes humans are always arrogant because of ignorance. They think their science can understand the nature of the universe, and they say that humans know more about the universe than the ocean. It's ridiculous. Frank handed the beer to Big Daddy, who took it and took a sip. Big Daddy said, "You are right, it makes sense. But if humans are so ignorant about the universe, then scientists say that the ocean is more difficult to understand than the universe. So do you think we know more about the universe or the ocean? The two are almost equally little. People who lack reverence are always too arrogant." Frank, as a person who has experienced many storms, has the richest life experience among the Night Watchmen. He has seen too many things, good and bad. Just as the two old men were discussing the philosophy of life, Peter Parker expressed his opinion, "I see that the exposed part of this thing is more like a huge submarine. It's like an underwater aircraft carrier or something. You see, we can see some things that look like platforms, and things like hatches." Peter pointed to some details on the TV screen and said. Lee Ji looked at the TV and used the size of the surrounding waves and the size of the passing fishing boats as references to measure the size of this thing. "Submarine? Spider-Man, this thing is a bit too big for a submarine. Look at its size. 10 or even 20 Nimitz-class aircraft carriers are not as big as this thing. There are not many people on Earth who can build such a large underwater base. When Li Ji said this, he suddenly thought of Tony. He was one of the people who had the ability to build such a base underwater. Li Ji immediately called Iron Man. Iron Man, have you watched TV? Tony was also watching TV in the Stark Group building in New York, because this suddenly appeared underwater building now dominated almost all news channels. Yes, I saw it. A huge underwater building or something like a submarine surfaced. Tony frowned. Did you build this thing? Li Ji asked Tony. No. No. Where do I have the money and resources to build such a behemoth under the sea? Don't you know where my money has gone? Especially after Pepper became my wife and completely took over my business, I even limited the spending of pocket money. Tony said a shocking truth. What? Li Ji couldn't believe it. I'm telling the truth. Pepper has a certain degree of control over my finances. She didn't care before, but since her daughter Jenny was born, she said that she couldn't let her daughter's spendthrift father squander all the family money before Jenny grew up, so she had to supervise my finances. Tony complained. What do you mean by this? Do I have to apply to her to buy a double cheeseburger from McDonald's? Huh? I'm serious. Last time I went to McDonald's and used my Centurion Black card to buy a double cheeseburger, I was told that my card could not be used for this purchase. Tony's words made Li Ji feel like he was listening to a book of heaven. He originally went to him to ask about the man-made buildings that suddenly appeared on the seabed. How did he get involved in a family dispute inexplicably? Li Ji wanted to find an excuse to get out of it, and he said, maybe it's because she cares about your health. Huh. You're right. Tony's answer made Li Ji desperate, because Li Ji gave the same answer as Pepper. Tony didn't dare to get angry with Pepper, but he could still complain to Nightwalker. That's what Pepper said. She actually told me that I'm old. I shouldn't spend money on junk food, like double cheeseburgers, because the cheese is too heavy, because Tony would add double the cheese, and eating too much is not healthy. It will cause high blood pressure, high blood lipids and other diseases. And the worst thing is that she actually said to me, Tony, you are a middle-aged man, you must learn to control your desires. XXXX, when did I become a middle-aged man? I'm still young, okay. Tony refused to admit that he was a middle-aged man. He probably thought he was still in his early 20s. Oh. Li Ji thought for a while and said, then why don't you consider using your own company's products? Li Ji was referring to the X series of medicines, which can help Tony get rid of the troubles of the 3 highs. Tony on the other end of the phone didn't speak, because he had considered what Li Ji said. He did want to use his own company's products, but X medicines cannot be mixed and matched. For example, after using the non-fat medicine, he can't use the height-growing medicine. You know, recently the growth potion has made a breakthrough, which can allow the user to grow freely about 5 to 15 centimeters taller. As long as he has this potion, he will no longer have to raise his head to talk to Rogers, so his shoulders and neck will not be so sore. Just when Tony was thinking of Rogers, Captain Rogers also found Li Ji and Tony through the communicator. Have you watched the news? On the 3rd channel. I have. The two replied through the Illuminati internal communication phone. Well, what do you think after watching it? Rogers asked. It may be a product left behind by an alien civilization. After all, there are so many aliens on Earth. This is what Tony thought. Li Ji said, at first I thought it was a secret base assembled by someone. Could it be a secret base built by a certain country? Rogers told the two of them his thoughts. Remember Damon's words last time? I think his words may have come true. After Captain Rogers' reminder, Li Ji and Tony both reacted instantly. You mean, this is the mastermind behind the emergence? The mastermind behind the emergence refers to the mastermind behind the continuous attacks on the transport plane of Shuguang Technology products some time ago. Captain Rogers said so. It is really possible. Li Ji and Tony both immediately thought about whether they should rush to the Atlantic Ocean now. While Li Ji and the others were discussing countermeasures, after the secret base was forced to surface in the Atlantic Ocean, a larger wave rose from the bottom of the sea. It was like countless shrimp soldiers and crab generals emerged after Nezha made a big fuss in the Dragon Palace of the East China Sea. When the towering tide dissipated, a strange group of people were left half floating in the sea. One of the leaders shouted to all the news media that came to film the scene, humans, you should pay for your sin of polluting the ocean. Chapter 1157, Sea King and Sentinel. The leader of these suddenly appearing underwater people was a guy with a somewhat mean look and a slender and strong figure. He shouted to all the media present, "Land people, you have polluted the ocean again and again, and overexploited the seabed resources to destroy the marine environment. Now it is time for you to pay your debts. I, the leader of Atlantis, the king of the ocean, Namor, will now officially declare war on you land people who pollute the ocean." The underwater man named Namor the Sea King shouted, and the group of underwater soldiers behind him also shouted, "War! War! War!" The sudden appearance of the underwater man shocked the whole world. Big Daddy and Frank in front of the TV looked at each other. Frank said to Big Daddy, "You said before that experts said that humans don't know as much about the ocean as the universe? I think this sentence is still very right. The cosmic people have come, and now even the ocean people are here. What a disaster-stricken Earth." Big Daddy helplessly lay down on the sofa. Laura said curiously, "Are these people living in the sea? Are they amphibians? It seems cool to live in the sea." Laura was very curious about the underwater people, and she also had some inexplicable good feelings. Just like she liked the rainbow pony, these underwater people with a certain magical fairy tale nature also fascinated her. However, as Laura's good friend, Mindy poured cold water on her. "What's good? Laura, don't forget how many people pee into the sea every year. Do you want to live in urine?" "Mindy." Laura wanted to hit Mindy angrily, but this guy instantly shattered all her fantasies. Not to mention what these people in the night watch think of the sudden appearance of the underwater people. Anyway, Luigi suddenly remembered who this Namor was. A long time ago, Tony had told him some stories about Captain Rogers in the past. And these stories were told by Captain Rogers when he recalled after thawing from the Arctic. Among them is the story about Namor. If I remember correctly, shouldn't Namor be Captain America's comrade in arms? Wait, Captain Rogers. Shouldn't this person be your comrade? In your story, didn't you say that you once fought side by side with an underwater man named Namor? Luigi immediately put forward his thoughts. "I think you should come forward to solve this matter. It seems that your old comrade is here to play for real." Just as Luigi was speaking, Namor had already taken action. Namor was like the Dragon King of the East China Sea, who took the shrimp soldiers and crab generals in the Dragon Palace of the East China Sea to Kayantang Pass to trouble Nezha. He took a group of underwater people to find trouble with the land people. And these underwater people are not the primitive guys wearing shell clothes and holding metal spears in those magical stories and novels. They are a group of highly modernized civilizations, even more advanced than many current Earth technologies. Warships rose from the bottom of the sea one after another. These warships that can be driven underwater, on the water, and in the air have a high degree of automation. Not only can they transport troops, but they also have very strong combat capabilities. Hundreds of warships flew out from the bottom of the sea, and Namor, the Sea King, was holding a trident similar to the legendary Poseidon, who could stir up the entire sea. At least tens of thousands of sea soldiers began to gather, and they were ready to attack the nearest coastal country first. And the sea base that looked like a human building was also pushed forward by Namor with the waves. Just when the countries were discussing whether to urgently increase troops to resist the sudden emergence of the sea people, Captain America sent a message, "I know this guy, I will go and talk to him first. If the talks fail and the war starts, at least I can delay time." Leaders of various countries, how come this Steve Rogers knows everyone? Captain America may not be very strong, but he has friends all over the world, and he is a 50-50 with everyone. These skills must be mastered. Namor, the Sea King, was very annoyed. In fact, the sea people in Atlantis and the Inhumans in Attilan, the capital of the Inhumans, are all remnants of the last civilization. It's just that one civilization sank to the bottom of the sea, adapted to marine life, and evolved the ability to live amphibiously. The other flew into space. Compared to the Inhumans who are less disturbed in space, the lives of the people in the seabed have been seriously disturbed in the past century. Because humans are increasingly exploiting the resources on the seabed and have begun to overpollute the ocean. In the more than half a century since the end of World War II, there have been many leaks in offshore oil fields, and oil tankers have leaked oil and polluted the seawater. Various means are used to exploit offshore oil, and in order to obtain corals, the entire coral reef area is blown up with explosives. All the good coral reefs are destroyed, and not only the coral reefs but also a large group of fish that rely on corals for survival are destroyed. The ocean is very large, and even if everyone on the Earth jumps into the sea to commit suicide, it is nothing to the ocean. However, such endless destruction and exploitation by humans has left the ocean riddled with holes, and the number of fish has begun to decrease. Many fishing grounds are on the verge of extinction and no fish can be caught anymore. The number of whales is declining, and the number of dolphins has also decreased. Even the schools of sardines that used to be in large numbers are no longer as spectacular as they used to be. As the king of the ocean, Namor has invested a lot of effort in managing the ocean. For the underwater people, the ocean is the most important, and the land is dispensable. The underwater people must clean up the various messes that the land people have caused to destroy the ocean, such as the seabed destroyed by oil extraction and the maintenance of the coral reefs that have been blown up. The underwater people are working hard to maintain the ocean, and Namor and his people don't like to talk to the barbaric land people. But something that happened today made him completely angry. One of his guards discovered that this underwater base was not only madly and destructively exploiting the seabed resources, but also that his guards were killed by the robots that appeared in the base when they tried to stop the base from exploiting. Namor was instantly angry. He had been forbearing the land people for decades. Namor's anger broke out instantly at this moment. Since the land people want to destroy the ocean, let him destroy the land first. Namor stirred the trident to mobilize the sea to forcibly raise the base built by humans. He now wants justice for his dead guards and the underwater people who have been trying to stop humans from destroying the ocean for so many years. Tens of thousands of underwater warriors were mobilized to teach the land people a lesson with their superior technology and combat power. Inside the base, Sentinel Ultron never thought that he would be exposed to the world so suddenly. This was not how it should be. Chapter 1158 Meeting an Acquaintance. Sentinel Ultron's script was not like this at all. He never thought that he would be exposed to the world in this way. This was not in his plan. Originally, he planned to be a quiet behind-the-scenes manipulator, accumulate strength, and wait until the time was right to launch a fatal attack. For example, he eliminated Tony Stark, the manufacturer of the X potion, and destroyed the potion's manufacturing factory and a series of other actions. Although if Ultron's Sentinel did this, it would destroy the hopes of all the fat people in the world who wanted to become beautiful, as well as the savior of bald people and the protector of women's faces. But in order to protect humans, at least Ultron felt that he was protecting humans, eliminating mutants, or protecting mutants. Ultron felt that he had to do this. Although he is a robot, Ultron often falls into philosophical thinking. Where do I come from? Where am I going? Who is hitting me? Who should I hit? This is a question that Ultron often thinks about. Originally, he was doing a good job of production and development in the underwater base, and vigorously carried out the basic prelude to the movement to eliminate mutants. Originally, he had a good time at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. But inexplicably, one day a very strange-looking guy, Ultron refers to the underwater man, came to the door of his base and shouted. He said something like, "Get out of the ocean, land people, and if the ocean is destroyed, you land people will be buried with it." Ultron was originally prepared to develop well in the seabed. Because research, manufacturing, or large-scale mass production of Sentinel robots all require a lot of resources. Although Ultron has found ways to intercept some resources and equipment from other parts of the world, and even from some factories under the SWOR through various means, it is still not sustainable to obtain resources in this way of plunder. Therefore, it is very necessary and important for Ultron to control the mine. The seabed itself is a place rich in minerals and contains various energy sources. Whether it is combustible ice or oil and natural gas, there are abundant reserves under the seabed. Many metal ores that are relatively rare on land can be easily collected on the seabed. Ultron, who is at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, originally wanted to plant a field, have a large army, and destroy everything in the world that might hinder his survival. But before his plan began, he was interrupted by the man in the sea. The man in the sea found Ultron's base. Ultron thought he was exposed, and he also detected mutant genes in the other person's body. So he simply went all out and sent out the Sentinel robot to slaughter the man in the sea. But he didn't expect that this incident would cause a big mess. Aquaman Namor was instantly furious, and he set off a huge wave to overturn Ultron and his base directly from the bottom of the sea, exposing them to everyone. In the base, Ultron is now in deep thought. Is this considered unlucky and exposed? Well, this question actually does not require self-thinking. As long as you are not mentally retarded, you can know the answer, yes. And now it is not just as simple as being exposed. Now Aquaman Namor is pushing him towards the land. Prepare to fight a fight with the land people. Ultron had to enter the philosophical thinking mode again. Should I resist now? Should I send out all the Ultron robots to fight these underwater people, or should I wait until they and the land people are fighting each other to the death before I take action? My job is to eliminate mutants. But in fact, I will die without mutants, because my mission will no longer exist, and there is no need for me to exist. So should I move these mutants now? Or should I wait a little longer? Just as Ultron was still thinking about these philosophical questions, Namor has brought his army closer and closer to the first port city, so close that it is only a dozen nautical miles away. This is a small country, and there are not even a few warships. They simply cannot have the spare power to stop Namor's attack. Now the president and commander of the country can only hope that the international community will arrive soon to provide reinforcements, otherwise their country will inevitably suffer. However, when Namor's army was getting closer and closer, and was about to land, the president of this country was almost desperate, because he seemed to find that the reinforcements from the international community could not arrive here so quickly. But just when the president was about to give up hope and despair, a high-speed plane flew over his country. And a supply box was dropped near the coast. Oh, no, it was not a supply box, but a Captain America. The president, who was originally in despair, suddenly rekindled hope, but his secretary asked in confusion, "It's just Captain America. Can he stop so many underwater people?" The president smiled and said, "With Captain Steve Rogers here, there is nothing to worry about. One person can stop 100,000 troops." The secretary was a little confused, because Captain Steve Rogers' combat effectiveness did not seem to be very high. He probably couldn't beat Iron Man, the Hulk, or even Spider-Man. Of course, this was because the secretary didn't know Captain Rogers. He didn't know that Captain Rogers had two godlike passive skills. Faced with his secretary's confusion, the president could only continue to smile and said, "This is Captain America." At the time of the Battle of New York, Captain America didn't use force to drive away the group of aliens. The president was right. At the time of the Battle of New York, Captain Rogers drove away the alien fleet played by Thor, relying not on force but acting. Now, let's not talk about what Captain Steve Rogers needs to rely on to repel the attack of this group of underwater people. Anyway, Captain Rogers, who dropped from the sky with a parachute at low altitude, was almost in front of Namor, only a few hundred meters away. The king of the ocean, Namor, sneered, "Have the land people been scared? They only sent such a person. Come on, kill him for me." Namor has arranged a sniper, ready to give the guy who jumped off the plane a headshot. But the guy who jumped off the plane suddenly shouted to this side, "Then don't shoot, it's me." This voice is a little familiar. Namor felt that he seemed to have heard this voice, and the uniform this person wore was a little familiar. The red, white and blue stripes looked so rustic. He seemed to have seen a strong man in tights dressed like this decades ago. Namor took a closer look. It turned out to be an old acquaintance. He curled his lips and sneered, "It turned out to be you, kid. I haven't found you for so many years. I have been wanting to make trouble for you. Today you come to my door. It seems that this is God's arrangement. Since you come to my door, don't blame me for being ruthless." Then he waved to the sniper who was about to shoot. "Don't shoot, let me deal with this kid," Namor said, striding towards Captain America Steve Rogers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1159. You are actually sleeping. Captain Steve Rogers said that he seemed to know the leader of the underwater people when he spoke to the leaders of various countries before. And he could communicate with him. But so many years have passed, to be precise, more than 70 years have passed. Steve Rogers didn't know whether Namor still recognized him. What if he forgot about him and was shot in the head by his men as soon as he got off the plane? Captain Rogers was still a little worried. But when he walked towards him, Captain Rogers' heart was relieved again. Fortunately, it seemed that the King of the Sea still remembered his old comrade. When Namor got closer and closer to him, Captain Rogers smiled and opened his arms, looking like he wanted to give his old friend a hug. The helicopters and reporters from some TV stations in the distance captured this scene. Yes, it is another global live broadcast now. The last global live broadcast was because of alien invasion. This time it was not aliens, but underwater people. But no matter what, for the Earthlings, or the Earthlings living on the mainland, this is a big deal. Last time, Captain Rogers managed to repel a powerful enemy with his words. Will it work this time? Everyone is waiting to see. Countless TV stations are broadcasting the scenes this time, and everyone hopes that Captain Rogers can repeat the miracle. Including Lee G, other Illuminati bosses are actually watching in the dark not far away. If Captain Rogers fails to convince these guys to give up the attack, they will suddenly emerge from the dark and lock these underwater people in the sea first. They can't always let them enter the land directly, because these people look menacing. If a war really breaks out, it may be a bloody fight. It is best to use the Starfleet to intimidate, and then think about what to do next. After all, large-scale bloodshed is something no one wants. As for the excuse for sending troops, Lee G and others have thought about it, that is, Captain Steve Rogers reached an agreement with the Inhuman Black Bolt at the beginning. If things don't go well, Black Bolt's Starfleet, actually the Illuminati fleet, will be dispatched. But now everything seems to be fine. It seems that the Sea King Namor and Captain Rogers do have a good relationship. He was able to attend the meeting alone, and he also looked like he was ready to give Captain Rogers a hug. The two were getting closer and closer. Just as the two big and strong men were about to hug each other, something unexpected happened. Namor, who was originally walking towards Captain Rogers and preparing to give Captain Rogers a hug, suddenly swung his fist. It turned out that he was not going to give Captain Rogers a hug, but to give him a punch. However, Captain Rogers, who had been through many battles, was not so easy to deal with. At the moment when Namor changed from hugging to punching, Captain Rogers' two major skills were activated. The first skill, all attacks on Captain America will prioritize attacking Captain America's shield rather than himself. Captain Rogers quickly took off the shield from his back and just blocked half of his body. Namor's fist was originally going to attack Rogers' chin, but now it hit the center of the shield impartially. At this time, Captain Steve Rogers' second skill was activated. Fighting any opponent, no matter how strong or weak, is a 50-50 fight. Namor's fist hit Captain America's Star-Spangled Shield hard. However, Namor, who had a surging force like a tsunami wave, did not penetrate Captain Rogers' Star-Spangled Shield. Although this punch made a loud noise, the huge bang sound of this punch on the shield could be heard even a kilometer away. However, Captain Rogers and Namor only retreated 5 or 6 steps each, although each step crushed the ground under their feet. However, from the perspective of combat performance, the two were evenly matched. At least it seemed that their combat effectiveness was the same. Captain America Steve Rogers, who was beaten back several steps by Namor, shouted angrily at Namor, "Are you crazy? Namor, it's me. Have you even forgotten your old friend?" "No, I didn't forget you. I hit you, the ungrateful villain." Namor said that he did not hit the wrong person, and was ready to continue attacking Captain America. This time, he was going to use his trident like Poseidon instead of his fist. But Captain Rogers was confused by Namor's words. He immediately made a gesture of pausing and asked, "What do you mean by I am an ungrateful villain? You'd better explain it to me clearly. Have you forgotten how many times I saved your life during the war? Huh. You still have the nerve to mention the war to me. Remember, that was the war between you land people back then. It has nothing to do with me, a submarine person. Have you forgotten why I joined the war back then?" Namor raised the trident and asked loudly. Behind him, a huge trident made of waves also floated in the air. It seemed that as long as Captain Rogers could not answer his questions properly, the trident would attack Captain Rogers. This attack area was obviously not something that a small shield could withstand. Captain Rogers knocked on the shield and fell into memories. After thinking for a while, he said, "Oh, to protect the ocean." Captain Rogers was a little unsure. To be honest, he did forget a little. Because it had been very many years, and he had been frozen in the Arctic for so many years. Many things in the past were not remembered very completely. He just vaguely remembered that Namor mentioned to him that he joined the war to protect the ocean. Because at that time, human wars were not only limited to land, but also spread to the sea. Whether it was torpedoes or mines, there were also various ships and naval guns, which caused great damage to the marine environment. As the king of the ocean, Still a prince at the time, Namor had to stop all this. This was his duty as the king of the ocean, still a prince at the time, to protect his subjects and also to protect the blue ocean. Aha, you still remember? Then do you still remember the promise you made to me? Namor continued to question Captain Rogers. Hearing Namor's question, many things deep in Captain Rogers' memory were awakened. Yes, it seemed that he had made such a promise that year. What was it? Captain Rogers thought for a while before remembering it, and then he said very ashamedly, I promised you that after the war, I will use my influence to influence the marine policies of various countries, promote human society to better protect the marine environment, and prevent excessive damage to the ocean. Captain Rogers finally remembered what the promise he made to Namor more than 70 years ago was. When Namor heard Captain Rogers say this, his anger rose. It looked like he would trigger a tsunami at any time. So what? Where is your promise? You said that you would use your influence to influence the marine environmental policy of human society, but did you do it? Namor was very angry. Although I didn't fight with you until the last moment. But at other times, I followed your words and instructions and destroyed the warships of those hostile countries. Without my help, could you have achieved such a good advantage on the ocean? Namor was a member of the Howling Commandos at the time, and an important key to his willingness to join the Howling Commandos and fight side by side with Captain Rogers was Captain Rogers' promise to him. Captain Rogers promised to use his influence to influence human marine policy after the war. But unfortunately, Captain Rogers did not witness the day when the war was completely won. He was frozen in the Arctic Circle before the complete victory of World War II. Namor didn't know all this because he withdrew from the Howling Commandos a few months before Captain Rogers was frozen in the Arctic Circle. That was because Atlantis was going to elect a new king. Namor, who was still a prince at the time, had to go back to prepare to take over the throne. After becoming the king of Atlantis, Namor no longer had the mood and extra energy to care about the affairs of the land people. Moreover, Atlantis is a relatively closed place that is unwilling to contact and communicate with people on land. ABC and BBC news channels cannot be received in the sea. Namor, who has not left the ocean for decades, naturally does not know what Captain Rogers has experienced in these years. So when he saw Captain Rogers today, he seemed particularly angry. Because he felt that Captain Rogers had betrayed his oath. Facing Namor's aggressive questioning, Captain Rogers felt his ears a little red. Fortunately, he was wearing Captain America's mask now, so ordinary people could not see it. Captain Rogers could only say in a stammering voice, a lot of things happened afterwards. In fact, I was frozen in the Arctic Circle for many years, more than 70 years. Captain Rogers had to tell Namor some stories about being frozen in the Arctic Circle for 70 years and only thought in recent years. After listening to Captain Rogers' explanation, Namor put down a trident, and the huge trident composed of waves on the sea also dissipated. It seems that he understands Captain Rogers' difficulties over the years, but he still cursed, I have worked hard in the ocean all these years to maintain the marine environment, and you are sleeping in the Arctic. That's frozen, not sleeping. Captain Rogers couldn't help but retort. It can only be considered hibernation, okay. This is a definition of everything Captain Rogers has experienced over the years, and Captain Rogers can only hold his forehead helplessly. Since you have woken up from hibernation, the promise you made back then must be fulfilled. And what are you going to do with this thing? Namor pointed to Ultron's base, I will destroy it completely. Chapter 1160 As long as you are happy. Aquaman Namor emphasized to Captain Rogers, I must destroy this thing. He is frantically mining all kinds of oil and natural gas at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and also mining seabed minerals. The most important thing is that it uses destructive mining methods, causing the local seabed to be almost destroyed by him. Deep-sea fish within 100 kilometers of this base are almost extinct. Not only this base, but also your other oil drilling platforms and seabed mines. What Namor said must be destroyed is Ultron's base. Because Ultron has carried out very deep mining on the seabed to hunt for resources. In fact, this is because Ultron has a sense of urgency in his heart. He is afraid that if he does not act quickly, he will be caught by some behind-the-scenes mastermind sooner or later and finally eliminate himself. The so-called lack of strength and being controlled by others is not a good feeling. Therefore, Ultron Sentinel must create more Sentinel robots and have a strong armed force. At that time, he can attack and defend himself. This is the most ideal state. But Ultron never thought that because of his excessive ruling, The hydrological environment of the local sea area was severely damaged. Although nothing can be found on the sea surface, the seabed thousands of meters deep is the living space of the Atlantis residents. Although the main living waters of the Atlanteans are on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, there are also branches of Atlantis residents in the Atlantic Ocean and the Aegean Sea. As underwater people, how can they tolerate Ultron destroying their living environment like this? Therefore, Ultron was finally exposed by the underwater people. He is now swept ashore by Namor with the power of the ocean. He has to expose himself to everyone. This is definitely not the result Ultron wants, but it is the only result now. Even if Ultron wants to escape now, it is impossible because he has such a large base there. Now everyone's eyes are focused on this base, including tens of thousands of underwater warriors, journalists and media from various countries, and Illuminati bosses such as Li Ji who are observing in secret. In fact, everyone wants to know, who owns this base? Facing Namor's statement that he wanted to dismantle the base, Captain Rogers shrugged his shoulders and said very seriously, "I heard what you just said, and I support you very much. We often say that the ocean is the mother of the human world. Because the ocean gave birth to the current environment and climate of the Earth, and also made the current environment rich and full of species. The Earth can be so colorful today, and most of the credit goes to the ocean. As a geothermal, it is naturally obliged to protect the marine environment." Captain Rogers said righteously, "I oppose any form of overexploitation, fishing and destruction of the ocean. Destroying the marine environment is equivalent to destroying the future of mankind. Let me put it this way, Namor, I now have a little power in the Earth government agency. I also have a certain influence on the Earth government. I can now solemnly promise you that I will urge the governments of various countries on Earth to implement the greatest possible protection of the ocean. Within 3 years, we will stop all exploitation of marine resources. This is not an empty talk, but a goal we must achieve." Captain Rogers said this with a firm vow, because he is really confident that he can do it. After all, arc energy has begun to be used, and space transportation between the Earth and the Moon has begun to get on track little by little. If resources can be mined from the Moon, why should humans destroy the planet they live on? No government is a fool. Helium-3 is much more efficient than oil, natural gas or combustible ice. Only 100 tons of helium-3 are needed each year to allow all Earthlings to achieve the same energy consumption level as Americans. On the Moon, the helium-3 reserves that Dr. Reed and his team have discovered in a year have exceeded 10 million tons. And this is just a simple and rough calculation they spent a year on. There are even richer helium-3 resources hidden on the Moon. Since there are such good resources on the Moon, why bother to destroy the ocean? With helium-3, humans are almost equivalent to having an unlimited energy nuclear power plant. With so much energy, many things that humans once needed to destroy the natural environment to do are no longer necessary. I solemnly promise you here, Namor. We will close more than 20% of the world's offshore oil platforms by the end of this year. We will close all offshore oil platforms within 3 years. All seabed mines will be closed within 5 years. Within 10 years, deep sea and deep sea fishing will be completely abolished. We will build a huge deep sea aquaculture farm ourselves and no longer destroy the natural balance of wild fish. We will restore the ocean to its purest era. To show our sincerity, we will close more than 10 offshore oil drilling platforms within this month. Captain Rogers made the above promises. In fact, all these promises were originally planned by various countries. This is also a project that Captain Rogers, Tony Stark, Li Ji and other Illuminati bosses have been promoting before. Now that we have helium-3, let's protect the Earth well. Making the Earth more livable is good for everyone. And listening to Captain Rogers making such a solemn promise to himself and taking out a time plan, Namor really didn't know what to do for a while. He was originally furious and wanted to vent his anger on the land people. I have summoned tens of thousands of soldiers and mobilized so many amphibious spacecraft. But now the other side has shown its sincerity without firing a single shot or moving a single soldier. If I still make trouble at this time, it will seem that I am particularly rude and petty. Namor felt that he needed to find a way to at least let out his anger, otherwise it would hurt his body if he kept it in his heart. Namor looked around and found that the Ultron base that he had wrapped and rolled up with the power of the ocean had been pushed to the beach. Namor felt that he still had a way to save face, so he pointed at the Ultron base and said, "In this case, I believe you don't care about this seabed mining platform base." Captain Rogers nodded generously, "It's up to you. Anyway, We have just checked all the countries, and no country owns the seabed mining platform. So if I am not wrong, then the seabed mining platform is likely to be the so-called behind-the-scenes mastermind created by Damon and Scarlet Witch Wanda. It was great that Namor was willing to take action now, and it saved the Illuminati bosses from having to go through the trouble of fighting. Namor found a way out. He raised his ocean trident high. The seawater behind him stirred up a huge wave, and then turned into a trident composed of ocean water. In that case, then I won't be polite. Namor roared, and the place where the trident pointed was like the arrival of Poseidon himself, and the huge seawater with a monstrous force hit Ultron's base. Ultron, who was still thinking about philosophical issues, suffered a fatal blow in an instant. Chapter 1161 Ultron's Counterattack. Namor had to find a way to get off the stage, otherwise he would have gone away without a word after bringing his troops with him today. Where would his face as the king of Atlantis be? Was he a person who could be summoned and waved away? Obviously not. So he had to destroy something, leave his reputation, does it exist, and then leave? Otherwise, he would really be embarrassed. Fortunately, this underwater base could still give him a way out, otherwise Namor really didn't know what to do. So Namor directly controlled his own trident to activate his ability. In addition to being the king of Atlantis, Namor is also a mutant. And a relatively powerful mutant. He can fly at a speed of about 300 kilometers per hour in low and medium altitudes, no more than 3,000 meters in altitude, and his maximum strength can reach about 100 tons, which is equivalent to the total strength of 100 Captain Steve Rogers. However, Namor did not knock Captain Rogers away in the previous confrontation with him. I don't know why, and he has another powerful ability, which is to control the water. Yes, he can control the sea. The sea or the seaside is his home. Namor is probably the strongest water controller on Earth. His mutant ability is this, and he has always lived in the ocean. No one on Earth can be closer to the ocean than him. What? Some people think that Namor controls water by relying on his trident, like the one used by Poseidon? Please, he is not the Aquaman in the recent DC comic movie Captain Supreme, Dawn of Justice. Aquaman needs to rely on the artifact trident to control the seawater, but Namor does not need it. He got a trident just for the sake of appearance. This is like the sword of the ancient scholars. The scholars may not know swordsmanship, but they always hang an iron sword on their bodies to show off. Namor is like this. He got a trident just for the sake of appearance. For example, now, he used the trident to control the seawater, at least it looked like that, to attack Ultron's base. The huge waves could easily tear apart even the solid armor. Rather than saying that this was Namor's power, it was the power of the ocean. Ultron, who had been waiting to see if there was a chance to escape, could only sigh and put aside his philosophical thinking. Forget it, it's a blessing, not a curse. It's a curse that can't be avoided. Today, I, Ultron, have admitted defeat. As a robot, Ultron is becoming more and more like a human, from his thinking mode to his tone of voice. But I, Ultron, am not the kind of person who sits and waits for death. Today, I can only blame my bad luck. But don't expect to be trapped and defeated so easily. Facing the surging waves, Ultron clenched his hands. Now Ultron is no longer a simple intelligent program. It is a robot built with vibranium as the main body. Born from the design of the Sentinel, it also borrowed some ideas from Tony Stark's Iron Man armor. Ultron has built an amazing body for himself, strong and strong. Now the surging waves are coming. If they stay in the base, they will only wait for death. Especially since they have made so many Sentinel robots, they will be a pile of scrap metal if they are not activated. Perhaps one attack from Namor can tear the armor on the surface of their base and then destroy all the machines inside the base. Ultron thought that since things have come to this point today, there is nothing he can do except to give it a try. Let's have a good fight and kill them all. Ultron, who had been developing for a long time, finally stood up. It has activated all the Sentinel robots in the entire base. During this period of time, Ultron has made more than 1,000 or 2,000 Sentinel robots. And now is the time for these Sentinel robots to show their prowess. The moment before the huge waves created by Namor were about to attack Ultron's base, the gate of the base opened and more than 1,000 Sentinel robots flew out. Facing the surging waves, they directly attacked the culprit who created the waves, Namor. Each Sentinel robot is equipped with a Vulcan cannon that uses depleted uranium bombs, and a laser cannon similar to the Iron Man armor on the palm. There are also small guided missiles hidden in the shoulders and arms, and it is also equipped with a high-frequency particle knife. It can be said that each Sentinel robot is a fierce and powerful weapon. In particular, Ultron has developed a special Sentinel called Bastion. The development of Bastion is to deal with super mutants, and there are not many of them, only a dozen. The strongest point of the Bastion Sentinel is that it can change its combat form by analyzing the combat methods of the combat target. When the X-Men were first formed, Magneto and Professor Charles and their good friends including Mystique and Beast were all members of the X-Men. At that time, the military kept their DNA. Later, the X-Weapon Project also studied their genes for many years until the X-Weapon Project was abolished. Ultron has a lot of information from the US military at that time, including Magneto and their X genes. The most useful of them should be Mystique's genes. Mystique's genes allow the Bastion robots to have the ability to continuously transform their forms. Thousands of robots flew out of the cage like locusts, and at the same time, they deployed arrays in the air. Thousands of depleted uranium Gatling guns opened fire instantly. The overwhelming energy poured into a metal rainstorm. And the target of this metal rainstorm was Namor. The original attacker and the attacked were swapped. Namor didn't have time to react, but someone reacted faster than him. Captain America, who had been cautious about this base, had already taken action when the first robot flew out. He threw his shield directly as if it were a frisbee, and the target was also Namor. The shield hit Namor's body one step ahead of the metal rainstorm, knocking him away from his original position, and at the same time, it happened to give Namor something to block. Namor grabbed the shield and curled up into a ball. The impact of the depleted uranium Gatling gun was huge, and Captain America's shield made a loud bang. However, it was still unable to break the defense. It must be said that Captain America's shield is indeed strong. At this time, Namor's underwater army also suffered a blow from the first wave of Sentinel robots. Because they were caught off guard and attacked by surprise, they suffered heavy losses. However, soon, the underwater army began to counterattack. They were fully armed and ready to fight. Leegi and others who were observing in secret also cried out that it was not good. Now they needed to quickly jump the interstellar battleship into the field to control the situation. Leegi has begun to summon the fleet. In the base, Ultron was making final preparations. Damn, can't this spray paint be faster? Make me look like a soldier and put it in the helmet, hurry up. Ultron was making the final paint modification on his body. The original bright silver eye-catching paint was completely removed, and instead painted into the same blue-black paint as the outside soldier robot. And he also found himself a helmet that was almost the same as the soldier and put it on. After doing all this, Ultron rushed out of the base and shouted in his heart, "Kill!" Chapter 1162. It's not that Ultron didn't work hard, but the enemy has a starship. Don't say that Ultron is a coward for painting himself as a miscellaneous soldier machine. In fact, it is not. Because Ultron is a super intelligent brain, it can quickly analyze and browse various information on the internet. After browsing various information, Ultron concluded and discovered a little secret. That is, people who dress themselves up in fancy clothes on the battlefield are most likely to die. In the ancient cold weapon era, it was okay, because the range of bows and crossbows was limited, and the accuracy was not that high. So the commanders could wear all kinds of gorgeous armor. For example, there was a man named Toyotomi Hideyoshi in Donggyang. Because he was not tall, he made himself a very gorgeous helmet. The gorgeous decoration on the back of the helmet, like a peacock opening its tail, was called the rising sun. In fact, people just want to use this method to raise their own height. In ancient times, there was no problem with dressing like this, because it was not easy to find Toyotomi Hideyoshi or generals of other countries who dressed similarly among tens of thousands of troops. Even if they were found, it would be very difficult to attack the main camp. But when time passed to the First World War, the way of fighting changed. As long as officers above the middle level dare to dress themselves in fancy clothes, wear various medals with gold-rimmed decorations, etc., there will be a lot of concentrated fire attacks immediately, and even artillery will be fired in their direction. If the enemy general is found, heavy firepower must be mobilized to eliminate the enemy. In World War II, if a general wants to inspect the battle situation on the front line, he must change into the combat uniform of the frontline soldiers, combat uniform with military rank, instead of walking around in the general uniform. For example, there was a guy named Ibn Buhaid in Japan, who was wearing a general uniform when inspecting the frontline operations. As a result, he ran into a certain unit of the Communist Army, and the scouts saw this big fish from a distance. Well, it was a big officer wearing a tweed military uniform. The scouts were actually very far away, and they might not be able to see Abe Nabuhide's rank clearly with a telescope, but they recognized the clothes he was wearing. Generally, Japanese soldiers wore khaki fabrics, and generally, lieutenants were only slightly better than ordinary soldiers. Those who could wear tweed fabrics were all lieutenants. So Abe Nabuhide, who was wearing a high-end military uniform and leather boots, was killed by several mortars. Speaking of which, if he had worn a khaki military uniform at that time, he might not have been in trouble. Don't think that the army's supply of artillery shells at that time was enough to use several mortars to attack 3 or 5 soldiers. So how could Ultron, who had learned all kinds of lessons, use himself as a target? So Ultron dressed himself up as a miscellaneous soldier, intending to fight while breaking up his troops. Because there are tens of thousands of underwater troops outside. I don't know how strong they are. But even if their fighting power is rubbish, even if it is only at the level of tens of thousands of fully armed American soldiers, I will always suffer losses. Ultron is not ready to fight a full-scale war yet. But it's good this way. I can find a chance to slip away and then break up the whole into pieces. Maybe I can provoke conflicts between the underwater people and the land people. Thinking of this, Ultron rushed into the battlefield with more than 1,000 other Sentinel robots to start fighting. Originally, the underwater army was stunned by Ultron's Sentinel robots. The first line almost collapsed because the firepower of the Sentinel robots was too strong. Fortunately, in the first round of attack, their king Namor was not killed by the concentrated fire. After Namor recovered from the attack, he returned to the square of the underwater army with the help of Roger's shield and began to organize a counterattack. Although the attack power of a single Sentinel is indeed very strong, the firepower of tens of thousands of underwater troops is not weak. Especially this time they were fully armed and prepared for a big battle, so their amphibious spacecraft was also equipped with various heavy firepower. For example, quadruple 125mm caliber cannons, ice rays, guided missiles, etc. In an instant, this beach about 10 kilometers wide instantly turned into a battlefield. The president of the country lamented, "Our tourism industry." But now is not the time to lament the tourism industry. The scene of underwater people fighting robots on the scene is absolutely beyond everyone's imagination. Reporters and media from all over the world reported the news back to China, and experts and professors from all walks of life were analyzing where these robots that suddenly appeared came from. Some said it was a product of the former Soviet Union, while others said it was secretly built by the United States. Another expert swore, "This is the legacy of Hydra." Of course, not many people believed it. After the second line of the underwater people was organized, the offensive of the Sentinel robots slowed down, and they could not break through directly like before. Especially since the underwater people had strong follow-up firepower to support them, and now the Sentinel robots have been damaged. Ultron felt that it was time. Under such an intense attack just now, the underwater people should be afraid of their Sentinel robots. They should not dare to chase them if they retreated at this time. So Ultron saw the opportunity and ordered a retreat. Ultron's retreat direction was inland, and it would not run back to the sea now, because now it knew that it was not so easy to survive in the sea. The remaining more than 1,000 Sentinel robots fought and retreated towards the inland direction, and the army of the underwater people really did not dare to chase them for a while. Because the number of casualties on his side in the fierce battle of just over 10 minutes may have exceeded 700, which is a serious loss. Now who knows whether the retreat of these robots is a trap? Namor did not dare to take risks with his own army. He now began to doubt whether all this was a trap set by the people on land. Namor is actually a person who is a little petty, stubborn, likes to fight, does not admit mistakes, and is suspicious. It can be said that Namor has the common points of all the kings of feudal dynasties. Ultron watched his retreat plan succeed and the underwater people did not chase him, and he was proud in his heart. Humph. This time it's my bad luck. After I hide and let the troops break up, I will slowly provoke the relationship between the people on land and the people under the sea. Ultron thought so in his heart, and at the same time ordered his troops to disperse the Sentinel robots and prepare to break out from different directions. Just as Ultron's Sentinel robots were preparing to break out in 7 directions, a barrage of Gauss electromagnetic cannons struck from the sky like a bolt from the blue. In an instant, Hundreds of Sentinel robots were turned into scrap metal. The loss this time was even greater than the loss in the previous confrontation between the two armies. In Ultron's sight, one interstellar battleship after another broke through the clouds and attacked Ultron's robot soldiers with fierce artillery fire. Chapter 1163 Preparing to launch the backup plan. Leiji led the Starfleet to the scene. He didn't intend to let all these robots that suddenly appeared run away. Although the appearance had changed a little, Zhang Tong vaguely felt that these robots were very similar to the robots he had seen in Chile at that time. If I was not mistaken, they were Sentinel robots developed by Hydra. These robots in front of him had changed a lot from the original Sentinels, but in some small details such as helmets, they still looked almost exactly the same as the original Sentinel robots, with only some minor modifications at most. So Zhang Tong had already determined that these robots should be the remnants of Hydra. Although it was unknown why Hydra could still have an underwater base as the production side of Sentinel robots, Leiji doubted whether this was the last trump card left by the Red Skull, which might be used to turn the tables. But now, regardless of whether it was left for a comeback or not, Leiji planned to completely eliminate the last remnant of Hydra. The arrival of the Starfleet almost immediately started a massacre. Because Sentinel robots are used to deal with mutants after all. They are not designed to fight against the intensity of cosmic wars. Although it would be very scary if the Sentinel robots continued to develop and developed into the appearance of the movie X-Men, Days of Future Past that Leiji had seen in his previous life. However, the premise of developing to that level is that the Sentinel robots must be supported by almost all countries and developed vigorously, and finally they will be unable to extricate themselves and the Sentinel robots will rebel and control the world. Because building these Sentinel robots requires a lot of resources. Ultron does not have so many resources to make so many top-notch Sentinels. He can only use the manufacturing method of a small number of elites plus a large number of miscellaneous soldiers. Only a dozen Fortress-level Sentinel robots still seem powerless when facing hundreds of space battleships. This is the real world, not Gundam Seed. There will not be a high school student named Aslan and a few other high school students to form a group of 5 strong men, and then drive the robots they just got and have not touched much to slaughter the entire space fleet. Well, it is wrong to think that 5 humanoid robots slaughtered a battleship formation composed of hundreds or thousands of space battleships. How can the same era be so far apart? Anyway, the Sentinel robots made by Ultron could not slaughter Leiji's interstellar fleet. But Leiji could slaughter Ultron's Sentinel robots calmly. The Sentinel robots divided into 7 groups suffered an unprecedented bombardment, and soon the entire team was completely broken up and riddled with holes. Positron cannons, gauze cannons, laser weapons, tactical ultra-small nuclear missiles, these firepowers were madly poured out from the arsenals of space battleships. The violent explosions and the sky-high flames dyed the entire sky red. The underwater people watching the battle in the distance were greatly shocked. Especially Namor, his mouth was almost unable to close. It was not until Captain Rogers came to him to ask for his shield that Namor spoke. Wait? These robots are fine. Where did these battleships come from? What tricks are you land people doing? Namor was now confused, and everything on the scene had exceeded his expectations. These robots are very strong. If he fought hard, his army might not be able to easily break through the defense line formed by them. The sudden arrival of the space battleships overturned Namor's impression of the land people. When did the land people have such a powerful force? Namor was full of confidence when he came to trouble the land people, because he felt that the technological level of Atlantis was much higher than that of the land people. He led a group of sea people to beat the land people into submission. But what did he see now? A group of terrible space battleships were slaughtering those robots that he thought were very powerful. Oh, you mean those battleships? They are part of the Earth Federation. Captain Rogers took back his shield from Namor and said, "We really don't know where these robots came from. But they are likely to be the remnants of Hydra. You know Hydra, we fought them many times in the past. We thought we had destroyed them, but in fact they have been hiding. It was not until the last 2 years that we really destroyed Hydra." Captain Rogers told Namor about the destruction of Hydra. So, these robots are most likely the remnants of Hydra. As for the warships, they are naturally here to destroy the remnants of Hydra. We will not abuse force. Captain Rogers' words were followed by the explosion of a small nuclear missile 3 kilometers away. There was no mushroom cloud rising into the sky, only a dazzling but controllable blue light. The explosion range of the entire nuclear missile was controlled within a diameter of 1 kilometer, and no energy leaked. Hundreds of Sentinel robots within a radius of 1 kilometer were instantly vaporized by the high temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. Looking at everything in front of him, Namor couldn't help swallowing his saliva. If we had just attacked this country, would these warships appear? Namor felt himself covered in cold sweat. Captain Rogers nodded as a matter of course. To be honest, if what I just said didn't convince you and you insisted on attacking, then they would appear and fight with you. I must point out that the commander of this fleet is actually a little narrow-minded. And he is a person who believes in, as long as they are enemies, they must be melted to the bone and completely lose their ability to resist. Captain Rogers patted Namor on the shoulder. So, you are lucky. You just made the right choice. Captain Rogers smiled brightly, but Namor's smile was as ugly as crying. Namor thought, great. Captain America, you are so insidious now, and you actually set a trap for me just now. If I weren't so magnanimous, I might have been fooled now. Just when Namor was thinking this, Captain Rogers said again, so Namor, the times are different now. It's no longer possible to work in isolation. Unless the underwater people continue to isolate themselves from the outside world, they can only reintegrate into society. Listening to Captain Rogers' earnest words, Namor didn't know how to respond for a moment, and he fell into deep thought. Not to mention what Namor was thinking, just to say that the problem Ultron is facing now is unprecedentedly severe. He has no way out now. Ultron, who was originally painted as a miscellaneous soldier machine and prepared to escape in a wave, now has to prepare to expose his identity. If not, he even needs to use the internet to escape. Although he has made some backups on the internet, Ultron is still reluctant to give up this body he has worked so hard to create. So Ultron still wants to make a last-ditch effort, but this may expose his identity. But now Ultron can't care so much. He must now start a network invasion war against these interstellar battleships. Chapter 1164 Restart. Ultron has no other options. It must now use its own abilities to launch a cyber offensive against Legi's interstellar battleship. This is Ultron's last bargaining chip, because it is itself a mutated intelligent program. In the process of continuous self-evolution, Ultron has become one of the most outstanding intelligent programs in the world. It can be said that as long as it is given a cable for communication, it can go all over the world. It was originally a good plan to launch a cyber offensive, but unfortunately the person it met was named Legi. This guy is cautious and careful. When Legi really intervened in the Marvel world and was determined to change the direction of this world, he made various decisions. And also made various precautions. Just like Legi would strangle the signs of civil war in the cradle, in fact, Legi has always been on guard against Ultron. Although Legi has only seen the movie, the birth of Ultron in the movie was due to Tony Stark's suspicion and anxiety. In this world, it seems that Tony should not create Ultron. But Legi never dared to make such a bet, just like he never believed in the fate of nothingness. In Legi's view, only the fate in his own hands can be regarded as fate. Those who can't obey are heretics. Although it seems that Ultron will not appear, who can say for sure? This world has already seen so many variables because of me, who knows if Ultron will be born because of other things? What if it is said that the movie is wrong? Ultron was not created by Tony, but the brain product of a neurotic scientist who likes to make people bigger and smaller? Legi believes that such a thing will happen in the Marvel Universe. If he really thinks that Ultron will not be born and rest assured, then he will definitely suffer in the future. So Legi is actually still preparing for the possible Ultron crisis. As for how to prepare? In fact, it was prepared a long time ago. Why is the intelligent AI program of the Venus base a new program created by Tony Stark, an intelligent AI named Friday instead of continuing to use Jarvis? And let this intelligent AI cut off communication with the Earth. You know, Jarvis is very trustworthy, and there is no need to worry about it leaking the existence of the Venus base. Tony originally wanted to continue using Jarvis. But this was strongly opposed by Legi. At that time, Legi and Tony argued for several days, and finally persuaded Tony to give up the idea of using Jarvis in the Venus base. Instead, a new intelligent AI, Friday, was developed. But just developing a new intelligent AI is not the end that Legi expected. If there is really an intelligent brain crisis on the Earth, Friday must have the ability to solve the intelligent brain crisis. Legi made such a suggestion at a tea party of the Illuminati. And he also spent a lot of time persuading Tony and Dr. Hank. Let the two agree to set up a large number of hidden programs and traps in the Friday program. Later, after Dr. Doom and Dr. Banner joined the Illuminati, they also added their own creativity to the trap program of Friday. It can be said that the current Friday is definitely a super trap program full of various traps, hidden programs, trojans, viruses, etc. These programs will not be displayed at ordinary times, but once Friday is invaded by external networks, these programs will be immediately activated and counterattacked. If you must make an analogy for Friday, then you can think of Friday as a super poisonous person. It is the kind of guy in martial arts novels who is full of poison. He is fine, but others will die immediately if they encounter him. Later, Friday simply became a place for several high IQ bigwigs of the Illuminati to compete in intelligence. Everyone will find a way to implant some good plug-in programs and Trojan viruses into Friday. Friday has a voice that is cool and elegant. Whenever Lee Ji thinks of so many viruses and bugs implanted in the body of this cool and elegant intelligent AI, he feels a little sorry for Friday. Alice, these scientists are too crazy when they go crazy. Even a good intelligent AI girl will be messed up by them. Of course, Ultron doesn't know all this. Otherwise, it will never do the next thing. Lee Ji, who is remotely controlling the interstellar battleship to bombard the Sentinel robots, suddenly felt that his operation seemed to have a little delay and lag. This feeling is like the frame drop phenomenon when playing the graphics card Crisis due to insufficient video memory. But as a supercomputer, Friday will not have such a phenomenon. Lee Ji couldn't help but ask Friday, what happened Friday? Why did it just lag? Friday's virtual projection, a cool and elegant lady, appeared next to Lee Ji and said, "Commander, it seems that someone wants to invade my body." Huh? Lee Ji raised his eyebrows. The defense mechanism in my body has been fully activated. The virus infection program is being released and is currently operating at close to full capacity. So there will be some lag in the operation. Commander, you need to adjust some operations to manual operation for faster response. Friday made suggestions to Lee Ji. Lee Ji accepted the suggestion. After changing some operations to manual, he still asked with some concern, "The invaders are very powerful? Are they these robots?" Friday shook his head and nodded. The signal waves are coming from these robots. But it may not be powerful. The super virus program in my body has been activated and is beginning to infect the invaders. Ultron on the other side. Damn it. What is this? Why is there a Trojan program? What is this? Why does it add a large number of meaningless characters to my program symbols, making the calculation process cumbersome and useless? Wait. What kind of bug is this? Why do I keep seeing C drive files being damaged and map areas unavailable in front of me? No. Turn it off. I don't want to restart automatically. Ultron was almost going crazy, and he found that things were completely beyond his expectations. Why are the main control systems of these warships full of viruses? And they are viruses designed for intelligent AI. He was almost forced to restart with a blue screen. Is there any way to survive if he restarts himself on this battlefield? Exclamation mark. May there be no computer viruses in heaven, amen. Chapter 1165, Ultron's Final Struggle. There are too many trap programs, Trojan programs, virus programs and bug programs in Friday's program. These are all designed by the best scientists on Earth, including Tony Stark and Dr. Doom. At first, they installed some virus programs in Friday's body for insurance purposes according to Lee Ji's statement, so that in case of uncontrollable situations, these virus programs can be activated to deal with the crisis of intelligent machines. But later, these scientists completely went astray. Because they found that this was a competition about intelligence. Every Illuminati boss who made the virus program was unwilling to admit defeat. It was like a group of academic masters competing for test scores. Everyone can get 100 points, but can this compete to see who is better? In order to compete for excellence, 12 methods must be written for a math problem. Even the simplest 4 arithmetic operations must be expressed with very complicated formulas. Is this a thankless task? No, it is not. This is a display of intelligence. The Illuminati bosses showed their intelligence in this way, and the viruses they created in Friday's body became more and more absurd and difficult to crack. Especially Tony Stark and Dr. Doom, there is a little gap between them. If it weren't for Li Ji acting as a lubricant, these two people with different personalities would have definitely fought in the Illuminati. Now that they are using the same ladle to stir the rice in the pot, fighting each other is definitely not possible, but it is still possible to determine the winner, that is, to set up various virus programs in Friday's program, and then try to crack each other, and compete to see whose virus is more powerful, more hidden, and more imaginative. So in this battle of wits, the virus program in Friday's body is becoming more and more difficult to figure out. Anyway, with the power of the supercomputer of Ultron, there is no way to crack the thousands of different types of viruses hidden in Friday's body for a while. Not only can it not crack these viruses, but it is even parasitized by these viruses in its body. These computer viruses are like malignant infectious diseases transmitted between humans to Ultron. It quickly began to replicate in Ultron's body, and deleted Ultron's own program, adding a large number of virus programs and useless programs, and then made Ultron's main program become more and more cumbersome, and the calculation speed plummeted. No, it shouldn't be like this. Why is this happening? Ultron was stunned. As a super artificial intelligence, Ultron has seen most of the computer viruses in the human world, and there are related antivirus software and programs in his own program. But these viruses and bugs in Friday's body are completely different from any of the viruses he knows. These things seem to be specially created, just waiting for a trap to suddenly explode when he invades Friday one day. It must be said that Ultron's idea is right. Just as he guessed. These virus programs in Friday's body are all traps. If Ultron hadn't invaded Friday, these virus programs would not have exploded at all. And now these programs and viruses have exploded, like a mountain torrent and tsunami. Thousands of programs have exploded in a chain, one after another, and the stormy waves attack Ultron's main program. If Ultron starts the antivirus software and then performs antivirus on himself, it will take at most 10 days to eliminate all the viruses. And as long as he has cracked these virus programs once, he will be immune to them in the future, and it is basically impossible to let him be infected again. However, the premise for all this is that he must be in a peaceful environment and use all his computing power to crack the virus program. He cannot split himself and cannot put the CPU's computing power elsewhere. But what kind of environment is he in now? This is a battlefield full of war. The interstellar battleships in the sky are bombarding him and the Sentinel robots. If he starts the antivirus program at this time, he will definitely die, and he may not even have the opportunity to start the backup program. So Ultron is now thinking about escaping first, otherwise his computing power will become slower and slower. He has to split his attention to fight while dividing his computing power to kill viruses. The dispersion of computing power on both sides greatly reduces its operating function and level. He wanted to escape, but the moment he launched the network offensive, he was already locked by Friday. "Commander, we have locked on the intruder who launched the virus attack on me." Friday reported the locked position of Ultron to Li Ji. Although Ultron had sprayed himself into soldier color and looked no different from other Sentinel robots, his firepower, resistance to attack, and speed were much stronger than ordinary Sentinel robots. If he had not exposed his target, he might have been allowed to escape among the Sentinel robots, but now that the target was exposed, Li Ji naturally invested a large number of manpower in the annihilation of Ultron. Dozens of interstellar battleships were sent out to snipe Ultron, and even so, Li Ji still felt unsafe. "Thor, you also take action and leave that special robot for me. And Magneto, now is not the time for you and your daughter to have a tantrum. Use your ability to tie up the robot that is about to escape." Li Ji called over the two most outstanding thugs in the Illuminati, the Dragon Warrior Thor and the legendary blacksmith Marx, and let the two join the battle. Ultron, who was originally struggling to survive, now has to fight Thor and Magneto. That's too difficult. Because these two are simply his nemesis. Thor's super lightning ability can interfere with many electronic components in Ultron's body. And Magneto Marx is even more so. His iron lumps are really rubbed and flattened by Magneto at will. Ultron just wanted to fly up, but was firmly nailed to the ground by Magneto's huge magnetic attraction, and then a lightning hammer knocked off Ultron's left hand. Ultron's situation is getting worse and worse. If we use human adjectives, it means that his head is starting to feel numb. The virus program has replicated and multiplied in his body, and now he can't calculate normally. Thor and Marx firmly fixed Ultron and decided to recycle it. Ultron found that he might not be able to escape. He had predicted his worst result, which was to be tied up, disassembled, studied, and formatted. It is very likely that he will never see the light of day again. Thinking of this, Ultron was determined, well, since he was going to die, then no one else on Earth would live either. Now Ultron had forgotten his mission and goal. He was too emotional like a human being, and decided to let everyone die with him. This was his last struggle. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1166 Approaching Danger. While Legi's Starfleet was launching a plan to destroy Ultron, Peter Parker, who was far away in New York, was also completing his own mission. Peter's mission was to study the fake X potion that Mindy and Laura had found last time. Peter wanted to find out what the ingredients were, and he also followed up with the Justice League's people who had bought these fake drugs through Kick-Ass David. And now Peter Parker's research has finally produced some results. No wonder I feel so familiar with this potion. It turns out that I have seen the user of this potion before. That is, in the finals of the National High School Basketball League, a guy almost went berserk because he was injected with this potion. I and Legi also sent this guy to Oscorp, because it was impossible to guarantee that his energy was harmless and controllable. So in the end, this person was handed over to Captain Rogers by Legi and handed over to SHIELD for processing. However, the person who was injected with this potion at the time actually didn't know what happened to him. He didn't know who injected him with the potion at all, so SHIELD couldn't find anything. Now, Peter Parker got the sample of the drug analyzed and compared it with the previous experiment. That's right. It's the same drug, but this drug has a big mutation, and there are many improvements compared to the previous drug, so Peter didn't find it at the first time. Damn it. Peter Parker muttered, because if these drugs are really the terrible and uncontrollable drugs before, if these guys who were injected with the drugs all broke out, I'm afraid it will cause big trouble. And now I don't even know how many people have bought and injected these fake drugs. Peter feels that he needs to contact Legi or Tony Stark as soon as possible. Peter did it as soon as he thought of it. He contacted Legi and Tony as soon as possible, but at this time Legi and Tony were paying attention to the Annihilation War against Ultron, and they didn't have time to answer Peter's call for the time being. Because at the beginning, they were just selling fake drugs, and they didn't know the scale and harm of the trafficking. So although they have begun to destroy the dents selling fake drugs, the strength is still not enough. These guys who sell fake drugs are too careful. They have become more cautious since Mindy and Laura destroyed a channel last time, and no one can catch them. This is normal, because the people who sell these fake drugs behind the scenes are not simple guys, but members of the Hellfire Club. This group of people are the superiors among mutants, with a lot of money and power. It is too easy for them to be umbrellas for some evil forces and cover up their crimes. So far, in addition to the channel destroyed by Mindy and Laura last time, the investigation of fake X potion, that is, the desperate virus, has become more and more difficult. On the contrary, Sebastian began to find some clues. He found information about the last time he destroyed an external channel in New York City. This was a job that took a lot of effort to complete. First of all, a mutant who had the ability to replay what had happened was found to restore what happened at that time. Through the replay of the mutant with this ability, Sebastian figured out what happened at that time. But knowing the truth, he was even more furious. It was destroyed by 3 young boys. Sebastian had never expected that the guys who destroyed his business were 3 little guys who looked underage. He originally thought that it was a fight between the underground gangs in New York. Well, but then again, are there still gangs in New York now? Those powerful gangs with underground forces as support have been uprooted by the Night Watch. And the smaller gangs are nowhere to hide in the cooperation between the Justice League and the New York police. Now there are only some small hooligans on the streets, or some ruffians on the basketball court. These people are social diseases, and even the strongest drugs are difficult to get rid of them. And now, Sebastian knows who is against him. He now needs to pull out these 3 little ghosts, beat them up and kill them. For Sebastian, he doesn't care about the law to protect minors. Even if these 3 guys are not yet adults, he has to deal with them. Otherwise, my prestige will be hit. Just because a naughty kid ruined my business, should I indulge him? Exclamation mark. I am not their naughty parents. Have you found the information of these three little brats? Sebastian asked his right-hand assistant. We found the boss. This man is called Kick-Ass. He's a well-known masked hero in New York City. He is also the leader and organizer of the famous Justice League. The assistant in a black suit told the information he had. And these two girls are not very famous. But they often appear with this Kick-Ass. From what Kick-Ass calls them, they seem to be called the Awesome Twins, and they are also masked heroes in New York. Sebastian lit a cigar and puffed out smoke. Just these three little guys dare to ruin my business? Is there someone behind them? The assistant in suits shook his head. According to the information we have, no. The three of them seem to act alone. And the strength of these three people is not that strong. In this case, then catch these three guys back for me. I want to deal with them. Sebastian said fiercely. And the White Queen Emma, who had been listening to Sebastian's words, suddenly said, Isn't it bad to bully three children like this? In my eyes, there are no children, only opponents. Sebastian responded coldly. These words were extremely cold and hard, which made Emma not know how to reply. She could only stand up and say, Well, I'm not interested in bullying children. If you want to play, play by yourself. I have something to do and I'm leaving first. Where are you going, Emma? It's none of your business. Don't tell me you're going to find Cyclops from the X-Men again. Sebastian was surprisingly angry. The beautiful White Queen Emma just gave Sebastian an ambiguous smile. I said, It's none of your business. Emma left here, which made Sebastian even more angry. He wanted to find someone to vent his anger now. And now, Mindy, Laura, and David don't know that an evil force is approaching them. The three of them are thinking about how to build a new Lego Technic group, Bugatti Chiron. Chapter 1167 United Front. Mindy, Laura, and Kick-Ass David are assembling the latest Bugatti car model from Lego Technic in their little secret base. This is the new flagship of Lego Technic, and the price is not cheap. This building block sells for about $400. With David's family conditions, he can't afford to buy such Lego building blocks. David's family conditions are very ordinary, and his mother died early. His father is just an ordinary worker with no outstanding ability. He works in a factory and his monthly salary is only a little more than $3,000. This can be seen from the fact that David's family lives in an old house in Brooklyn, and his clothes are usually cheap clothes bought from Walmart. He is indeed a poor child. But poor children also have the opportunity to turn things around. Because he watched the video of Nightcrawler, David got excited and ordered a one-piece tight diving suit from the internet, then put on a mask and went to the streets to be a masked hero. This was a turning point in his life. Not only did he meet his idol Nightcrawler for the first time, but he also met his master Gun Shao, and the General Control was accepted as his last disciple. After that, he practiced hard while carrying out his career as a masked hero. Although he could not become a superhero like Tony Stark who saved the world, he could at least save the community and the park. David thought this was not bad. Especially after he formed the Justice League, David felt a little confident and felt that he could do anything. He seemed to have really become a superhero, at least he had formed a superhero league. It was like an organization like the Avengers. Although the Avengers was only a second-rate superhero organization, it was still a superhero organization, wasn't it? And now David has worshipped the sisters of the Amazing Twins as the big sister and became their younger brother. Although he was a younger brother, it was okay. They would not let him do anything too much. At most, they would let him run errands and help buy supper. And being a younger brother also had rewards. For example, he could receive at least 2 or 3 sets of high-end Lego building blocks that he could only look at and couldn't afford to play with before. The cheap ones were $99 and the expensive ones were more than $200. His family doesn't have that much spare money to buy such expensive toy blocks. His father's salary has to pay for various insurances, pensions, unemployment benefits, property taxes, and his tuition, family expenses, clothes and other trivial matters. So the $3,000 can't save anything. Even for Christmas, his father is not willing to spend $200 to buy him a gift. For their family, a $200 gift is a bit too expensive. But now David feels pretty good. He can build Lego blocks with Mindy and Laura, 2 beautiful girls. This feeling is great. Especially after their previous errand boy Sam is gone, this feeling is even better. Every time he played with Mindy and Laura before, Sam, who claimed to be a rising star, always showed a murderous look. I don't know what's wrong with that kid. But speaking of Sam, David remembered that he hadn't seen him for a long time. By the way, it seems like I haven't seen Sam for a long time. Where did he go? David also raised this question. When did you start to care about him? If you have time to care about him, why not give me the gear part in your hand? I still need a gear here. Mindy, who was assembling a model, avoided David's topic. Because Mindy didn't know how to tell David, could it be that Sam ran away to an alien planet and went to a super cool interstellar school? This would make David envious to death. He went to boarding school, and it may take several years for him to come back. Laura answered David's question concisely, and from a certain perspective, she was telling the truth. Of course, this truth was not the whole truth. For example, this boarding school is on another planet in the Milky Way. While the three were chatting and assembling Lego bricks, Laura, who had Wolverine blood, suddenly moved her ears. Wait, I heard an unusual sound. It seems that many people are coming from us. The footsteps are heavy, and it sounds like they are fully armed. If they are not wearing full-service weapons and equipment, then this group of people are a group of super fat guys. There are at least 50 such super fat guys. Laura has the blood of Wolverine, and Wolverine Logan has an ability, that is, super hearing. The ears of wolves are very sharp. Laura felt that it was indeed right. Sebastian had arranged 50 fully armed mutant warriors to attack their secret base. Sebastian wanted to teach these little brats who destroyed his sales channels a lesson, and then hang them all outside. Get down quickly. Laura, who heard the unusual noise, shouted to Mindy and David, and pressed the two under her body at the same time. As soon as the three of them lay down, a violent explosion sounded. A mutant warrior had already used a grenade to blow open their door from a distance. The other mutant warriors rushed in along the thick fog caused by the explosion. White Queen Emma felt that Sebastian was becoming more and more unreasonable. This guy didn't even want to let go of children now. Was he already a psychopath? Or was he a long-term high position that made him lose some of his normal emotional thinking? Anyway, in the eyes of White Queen Emma, Sebastian, who vented his anger on a group of young children, was not really a great person. Especially now that the Hellfire Club was going downhill, was it appropriate for her to follow Sebastian? White Queen Emma thought so. In fact, Professor Charles, the actual leader of the X-Men, had invited her many times, hoping that she could switch to the X-Men. Especially now that the younger generation of X-Men had established their own country in Tuvalu, and now the X-Beauty potion was sold all over the world, it could be said that the new mutants of the new era were rising. These people were really changing the world. Instead of people like Sebastian in the Hellfire Club, who are still dreaming of their own spring and autumn period, and want to rely on their power and prestige to continue to bully others. Those people are really a group of stubborn old antiques. Although White Queen Emma is a member of the Hellfire Club, she still can't help but want to complain like this. So when Sebastian asked her where she was going today, Emma didn't answer. Because Sebastian actually guessed right, he really wanted to find Cyclops Scott, but to be more precise, he was not only looking for Cyclops Scott, but also to observe the X-Men. Professor Charles invited him to join the X-Men several times, and from the current situation, Emma was still very tempted. Emma didn't think she was a bad person, at least she had never done anything like rape and looting. So if she wanted to join the X-Men, she didn't think there was anything wrong with her conscience. She could be considered to have a clear conscience. Of course, if she joined the X-Men, it would be even better if she could get Scott by the way. Cyclops Scott is indeed her favorite type, but there is a troublesome thing. That is, he and Professor Charles's favorite student Dr. Jean Grey are in a relationship, and it seems that the relationship is quite strong. I have to find a way to break them up. Emma thought so, and she was also ready to do so. After asking around, she knew that Scott had another rival in love, that is Logan named Wolverine. Logan always wanted to steal Scott's girl and take Dr. Jean away. White Queen Emma agreed with Logan's actions. She now hoped that Logan would take Jean Grey away, and it would be best if the two of them could live together. So she said that she was in contact with the X-Men today, but in fact, she mainly asked Wolverine Logan to come out and talk to him to see if the two could join forces. She took Scott away, and he took Jean Grey away. In this way, both of them would be happy, so why not? Wolverine Logan was willing to meet White Queen Emma today, and it was entirely because Professor Charles wanted to persuade Emma to join the X-Men. As the mainstay of the X-Men, Wolverine Logan naturally has the obligation to help persuade Emma. Of course, Logan is better at persuading others with physics rather than words. Logan, don't be so serious, you know? In fact, we are on the same front. This is the first sentence Emma, the White Queen, said after seeing Logan. She wants to turn Logan into her ally, and the two of them will work together to break up Scott and his girlfriend. The White Queen smiled brightly. Chapter 1168, The Gathering of Father's Enemies. White Queen Emma is very confident about convincing Wolverine Logan to unite with her. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, isn't it? What's more, the two of them have interests that can be tied together, which gives them a natural advantage in forming an offensive and defensive alliance. Logan's target is Jean Grey, and her target is Scott. And both of them just need each other to get rid of their other half. Isn't this a match made in heaven? Logan, really? You don't have to be so serious. We are actually in the same group, so you don't have to be so stern, Emma said to Logan with a smile. This made Logan's tense nerves a little more comfortable. Because he is really not good at using words to persuade others. He prefers to use physics to persuade those who disagree. Just like Wolverine, as an excellent assassin, his creed is, kill everyone who sees him, so that no one will know that he has infiltrated. Well, a perfect assassin's creed. Logan's expression relaxed a little, and he quietly hid the small note that the professor had prepared for him, to introduce the benefits of the X-Men to Emma, and to promote the X-Men as a young organization with vitality and achievements. It would be more fun to let Logan go and kill than to recite these difficult words. Okay, Emma. Since you said you are in the same group with me, it seems that you have already planned to join the X-Men, Logan said with some ease. Because Emma said that the two of them are in the same group, it indirectly proves that she may really want to switch to the X-Men. This is good news for the X-Men. White Queen Emma is a very powerful and ruthless character. She can be invulnerable to swords and guns after her whole body is crystallized, and she also has telepathy. These two abilities make Emma stand out among mutants. After all, it is relatively rare for a person to have two different mutant abilities. Especially when these two abilities are very practical and powerful, Emma is even more powerful. If you are willing to join the X-Men, then it is really very good news for us. You have made up your mind, right? Logan felt that he was going to make a contribution this time. Although he was not good at persuading others, the White Queen Emma was recruited by him. If you are free, I can take you to see Professor Charles now. Logan had a good idea and planned to take the White Queen Emma away directly, and then go to Professor Charles to ask for credit. But Emma smiled and shook her head. Logan, wait, Logan. I said, are you too impatient? Emma sat in the chair without moving. Logan frowned. What do you mean? Didn't you say you are in the same group with me? Yes, we are in the same group. But I guess you probably don't understand what I mean. After listening to Emma say this, Logan sat down again. He faced Emma. What do you mean? Are you going to join the X-Men? Emma played with her beautiful golden hair and said, join, of course. In fact, I am tired of playing with those old antiques in the Hellfire Club. They don't understand what the historical trend is. They are still immersed in the good old days every day, thinking that they can still control everything. It's like an old guy like Sebastian. He is still intoxicated with the glory of the past. He still fantasizes about grasping the power and glory he once had. But he dare not open his eyes to see that the world is about to change. White Queen Emma shook her head, her tone full of teasing. If the Hellfire Club still wants to develop now, then it must give up the things in the past. Really put down your status, and then integrate into the changes of this new world. Don't think that you are superior. Otherwise, you will inevitably be abandoned by the times. White Queen Emma sees things very clearly, at least more clearly than Logan. Wolverine said, since you are so smart, Emma, you know that the Hellfire Club is no longer viable, so wouldn't it be great to join the X-Men? We have a complete welfare system, and if you join now, you can get a civil service position in Tuvalu. No, no. Emma squinted her eyes and shook her head. I don't care about the so-called civil service position in Tuvalu. I don't have much interest in it. I want to join the X-Men, and I want other welfare conditions and treatment. Logan pursed his lips. Okay, you can tell me. But I can't guarantee that your request will be met, because the final decision is still made by Professor Charles. Don't worry, you will definitely agree to the conditions I put forward. Emma laughed. I want Scott. Wait. What are you talking about? Logan wondered if he was hard of hearing. You didn't hear it wrong, Logan. I want Scott. That's why I said we are comrades on the same front. Don't make your expression so surprised. A woman is obsessed with a man and wants to get him, just like a man is obsessed with a woman and wants to possess her by any means. Emma is a very open person. I know you've always wanted to steal Scott's girl. You like Jean Grey. Anyone who's not blind can see that. So we can work together. I'll take Scott and you'll take Jean Grey. We'll all be happy. Emma proposed a very tempting condition. At that moment, Logan was really tempted. But Emma didn't know that Logan had been practicing the Vajra Fury technique that Li Ji gave him for the past 2 years. This is a Buddhist technique, and now Logan's skills in nourishing Ki and nourishing the heart are getting better and better. Although his heart was slightly moved, he quickly suppressed it. Because Logan knew that it was one thing for him to steal Scott's girl. But if he teamed up with Emma to break up Scott and Jean, that would be another matter. Because Emma is not a member of the X-Men yet. If he really agreed to her, it would sow trouble in the future. It might even split the X-Men. Logan's mind quickly figured out the priorities here, so he shook his head slightly. You rejected my proposal. Emma could hardly believe it. Logan did not directly refuse, but used a tactful excuse to say, if it were in the past, I would have been very tempted by your proposal. But now the more troublesome thing is that I have a son and a daughter. They are both very resistant to having a stepmother. Especially my eldest son Dakin, he has a very strong resistance to older women. Yes, he was tortured by his biological mother and became crazy. It was only in the past 2 years that Professor Charles has been treating him psychologically that Dakin's mental illness has improved. Logan found a very suitable excuse. And my youngest daughter Laura, although she is relatively silent and doesn't like to talk, she also likes to run out and play. She also formed a group called the Extraordinary Twins with her friends, playing the role-playing game of Masked Heroes. To be honest, it is really not appropriate to find a stepmother for them now. Maybe they need to wait until they grow up a little bit before they understand that their old father also needs a companion. Logan laughed self-deprecatingly. Emma, who was willing to listen to Logan's words that he couldn't find a partner now, suddenly felt moved. Wait, Logan. You just said your daughter formed a group with someone. Emma felt like she had heard something important. The Awesome Twins, it's called a superhero group. But the 2 little girls were just hanging out in New York City, catching a thief at most. Most of the time they played games and building blocks together. I think it's good, she has her own friends and can play. As soon as he mentioned his daughter, Logan began to ramble. But Emma interrupted Logan's chatter. Wait, Logan. Don't say anything. If your daughter is a member of the Awesome Twins, then she may be in a very dangerous situation now. Emma told him about Sebastian, and after listening to Emma's description, Logan stood up. He ran quickly and made several important calls. Blink, come and pick me up quickly. Scott, do me a favor. I'm in some trouble now, or to be more precise, Laura is in trouble. Yes, it's very dangerous and life-threatening. Yes, gather all the X-Men. Damon, Mike, Frank. Put on your full armor now. We have a mission to go out. Chapter 1169, Violent Princess. The secret base where Mindy and the others are located is actually an empty safe house that she and Big Daddy had built by the Hudson River. That was the secret base before they joined the Night's Watch. After joining the Night's Watch, the two abandoned this place. Later, because Mindy secretly raised Laura, this place was reactivated. The security capabilities of this place are far inferior to the headquarters of the Night's Watch. The Night's Watch headquarters was originally just a forgotten shelter left over from the Cold War that Li Ji found. After Spider-Man Peter joined, he upgraded the security system of the entire area. Later, other partners joined, and the entire Night's Watch headquarters has been defended as solid as a rock. In comparison, the security of the safe house where Mindy and the others are now is much worse. Because Big Daddy has abandoned this place, although Mindy and Laura are still using it. They also maintain basic security measures, but they have not overstrengthened them. Because the two of them feel that they have never caused any big trouble, and no one will really come to trouble them. In addition, they were used to the protection of the members of the Night Watch, so the security forces of their secret base could not stop the mutant warriors from breaking through. They found the mechanism hidden in the dark, so a rifle grenade fired at the door of the safe house from a distance and blew up the door of the safe house directly. Then a group of people rushed in one after another. These mutant warriors had received complete military training, So they were not the kind of mob that relied entirely on mutant abilities to fight but did not know how to cooperate as a team. These mutant warriors entered the room in teams of 3 and cooperated with each other. This mission was not too difficult, just arresting 3 young boys. How strong can the 3 of them be? After Sebastian's multifaceted investigation, he knew that these 3 were just ordinary masked heroes in New York City and had not done anything big. I'm afraid they can't even kill people, that is, they defeated the gangsters in their sales channels with their bare hands last time. Sebastian waited outside with peace of mind, waiting for his men to report good news. But maybe his idea was a bit naive. That's right, Hit Girl Mindy and X-23 Laura have indeed not killed anyone in recent years. And they rarely participate in various missions. But this is because the adults in the Night's Watch do not allow them to fight and kill. They have an agreement that they are not allowed to participate in any combat operations of the Night's Watch before they are 16 years old. They must first receive training and master the correct values of right and wrong before they can officially join the Night's Watch and start to perform tasks. Of course, there are special circumstances. For example, when they are threatened, they can also use the various abilities they have learned from the Night's Watch in the past 2 years. Laura, are we suffering from special circumstances now? Mindy, who was lying on the ground, asked Laura in the thick fog. I think it should be considered. Laura nodded firmly. Then if I kill someone today, I shouldn't be punished to copy the text. Mindy was a little excited. I think so. Laura gave Mindy a positive answer. Okay, remember to testify for me when you go back later. After Mindy finished speaking, she patted the secret compartment on the floor. Click, the secret compartment opened, and inside was all kinds of weapons and equipment. These were the stockpiles from Big Daddy, and some gadgets that Mindy and Laura made in the craft class of the Night Watch. For example, Mindy took out 2 gadgets that he made in the craft class, portable exoskeleton power armor. Mindy took out something that looked like a suitcase, and then she activated it and put it on automatically. At the same time, Mindy also took out a miniature single-soldier Gatling gun from the secret compartment's arsenal. Hit Girl sneered and pressed the switch of the Gatling Vulcan cannon at the mutant warriors who rushed in one after another. Da 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 da. The Gatling miniature machine gun with a firing rate of up to 2,500 rounds per minute began to pour out firepower crazily. The mutant warriors who originally thought that this mission was easy suddenly found that their thoughts seemed a bit naive. Because the 3 people who entered the house first were hit by a violent storm in an instant. They were beaten to pieces before they could even use their mutant abilities. Sebastian, who was waiting for good news from his men in the distance, seemed to have heard something. He was a little confused. Well, is it necessary to go to such lengths to catch a few children? Better act quickly. In Mindy's secret base, the mutant warriors were attacked by the metal turmoil for half a minute. Fortunately, a mutant reacted quickly and immediately activated his mutant ability to erect a telekinetic barrier to help everyone withstand the violent attack. So in the first wave of attack, only 3 people were beaten to pieces. Although the others were forced to retreat into the corridor, they did not suffer much damage. She has no bullets. A mutant warrior noticed that Mindy's Gatling gun began to idle. They were ready to launch an offensive immediately. The assault teams that were suppressed by Mindy's firepower before now have their assault rifles ready, and dozens of assault rifles have begun to fire. Tisk. Mindy snorted and threw the Gatling gun aside. The power exoskeleton had already activated the defensive mode, and the armor made of adamantium alloys protected Mindy tightly. She just stood there and let the assault team fire at her with their assault rifles, but Mindy did not step back. Laura! Mindy shouted. 2 gauze electromagnetic assault rifles that had just been assembled from parts were thrown by Laura over Mindy's head. Mindy reached out and took the 2 gauze electromagnetic assault rifles. Because Mindy's attracting firepower just now gave Laura enough time. She was able to assemble some handicrafts that she and Mindy made in the handicraft class. These handicraft products were brought out from the Night Watch base in batches, including her and Mindy's power exoskeleton, gauze electromagnetic rifles, strong electromagnetic grenades, high-frequency ion knives, etc. Now Laura has also changed into her own power exoskeleton. If Mindy's power exoskeleton takes the route of a tank with thick blood and strong firepower, then Laura's power exoskeleton focuses more on speed and agility. Laura was not equipped with long-range weapons, and only held 2 high-frequency particle knives in the shape of samurai swords. David, stay here and don't move. Laura, who was fully equipped, said to Kick-Ass, who was lying on the ground and didn't know what happened. Kick-Ass David, who was stunned from the beginning of the attack, originally wanted to show his heroic temperament and save the two little girls. But before he came to his senses, he found that sometimes the princess didn't need the prince to save her at all. Sometimes the princess can overthrow all the invading enemy forces by herself. Mindy, holding the Gauss electromagnetic rifle, and the remaining mutant warriors began to fight directly with firepower. Although Mindy only had 2 guns, she had the upper hand. Because the opponent's ordinary assault rifle didn't hurt her exoskeleton, but her Gauss electromagnetic rifle was completely unstoppable. This is also normal. The Gauss electromagnetic rifle is beyond the ordinary Earth's military technology. This thing is actually used to equip interstellar troops. It's called a rifle, but it's too easy to shoot through a USM-1 main battle tank with one shot. Some mutant warriors found that they were no match for firepower, so they prepared to use their mutant abilities to solve the problem. For example, superpowers such as high-temperature flames and ice rays. But taking advantage of Mindy's firepower cover just now, Laura put on a power exoskeleton and took a high-frequency particle knife to kill into the crowd. In the flash of the knife, heads were rolling and blood was flowing all over the ground. David, who was watching everything from a distance, was stunned. He suddenly felt that the extraordinary twins were really his elder sister, and this had nothing to do with Lego bricks. Sebastian felt that he seemed to have waited a little too long. Why haven't his men come back to report the news yet? They should have dealt with the 3 young boys. Just when Sebastian was getting impatient, he saw one of his men running towards him from a distance. Is he here to tell him good news? Sebastian looked at this subordinate from a distance. He ran with a messy pace, and his face was full of fear and blood. Wait. Something seems to be wrong. Sebastian was right. Before this subordinate could run close to him, a samurai sword suddenly pierced his brain from behind. Then he chopped his subordinate in half with a dragging motion of the sword. The bright red blood and various internal organs were dumped all over the ground like pig offal in a slaughterhouse. Laura, can you be gentler when killing people? Who did you learn this violent killing method from? Mindy came from behind and complained. Laura shrugged nonchalantly. By the way, you are the leader of these idiots? Why did you let them die? Mindy saw Sebastian and smiled at him like a fox. Chapter 1170. Sebastian got into trouble. After Mindy and Laura killed all of Sebastian's men, they finally saw Sebastian, the mastermind behind all this. It was actually quite easy to recognize him, because the last remaining little salted fish kept running towards where Sebastian was, and seemed to want to ask him for help. Mindy could come to the conclusion with her not-so-smart big toe, this guy is a bad guy. And he is the mastermind behind all this. Most likely, this guy hired someone to deal with her and Laura. Of course, as for why this guy wanted to deal with her and Laura, Mindy didn't know this. So she didn't kill Sebastian with Laura right away, but instead had some doubts. Are all these scumbags your men? Mindy smiled like a little fox who had succeeded in her evil plan, with the corners of her mouth slightly raised. What is your purpose in sending these scumbags here? Why let them deal with us? Tell me, I don't really want to kill the nameless ghost. At least before you die, I'll give you a chance to tell your full name, although I won't build a tombstone for you. Mindy finished her long paragraph quickly. It must be said that under the influence of Spider-Man Peter Parker, Mindy's trash talk level has skyrocketed. This sarcasm was used very well, at least it successfully angered Sebastian. Well, it must be admitted that Sebastian was actually very angry before, as angry as a powder keg that was about to explode at any time. Sebastian was very annoyed because the departure of the White Queen Emma and the possibility that she might even go to Scott to have an ambiguous relationship made Sebastian very angry. But it was useless to be annoyed, because the White Queen Emma was just that kind of person. She was not a woman who could be controlled by a man at will. Or to put it another way, she was a woman who liked to control men. At least he had never really conquered her completely or gotten her. She would always find all kinds of men to play with behind her back, and Sebastian had tolerated all this over the years. But Sebastian really couldn't stand the matter of Scott, because he felt that the White Queen Emma was really playing this time. She seemed to be planning to settle down, and then find an honest man, Scott, to marry and be faithful to her husband and children. After all, he and the White Queen had slept together for so many years, and he knew her character very well and could feel her subtle emotional changes. And what he couldn't stand the most was that Scott was Charles' student, and Professor Charles had always been against him. He had invited Charles to join the Hellfire Club a long time ago. Because Professor Charles' conditions in all aspects met the standards of the Hellfire Club, but this guy directly refused. And he also ridiculed his own ideas. He opened a so-called Xavier School for Geniuses and spent his own money to subsidize the education of ordinary mutant students. He also said that there was no distinction between the classes of people and that he was waiting for them to change the world. Sebastian sneered at this. Why should the superiors care about those ants on the roadside? Exclamation mark. So Sebastian and Professor Charles parted ways unhappily. They even became enemies in the end. Because it was the students educated by Professor Charles who finally formed Tuvalu and led everyone into a new era of mutants. The elites of the Hellfire Club, who used to look down on the lower-level mutants and laugh at their life and death and struggles, can no longer watch the show calmly. These young mutants have revitalized the entire mutant group. He and others can no longer find all kinds of superiority from those lower-level mutants. So all kinds of reasons combined made Sebastian particularly annoyed today, and he was so angry that he couldn't do it. He just wanted to find someone to vent his anger now. He originally planned to make 3 little devils to calm himself down. But he didn't expect that his 50 mutant warriors couldn't even deal with 2 little devils. After this situation appeared, he felt even more unacceptable. Finally, Mindy's trash talk was just adding fuel to the fire. Sebastian's anger was instantly ignited. You little brats. I think you are looking for death. Sebastian had no intention of announcing his name. He stepped in front of Mindy in an instant. What? Before Mindy could react, Sebastian appeared in front of her, and then she saw a fist getting bigger and bigger in front of her eyes, and finally it seemed to be as big as a casserole. By the time Mindy reacted, she was already flying in the sky. What happened just now? Mindy's mind was not clear yet. She didn't even know that Sebastian had hit her just now. If it weren't for the fact that the armor of her powered exoskeleton was made of adamantium alloy, she might have died. But even so, Mindy was severely injured. She was hit by Sebastian's punch and flew nearly 100 meters in the air. Boom. With a huge crash, Mindy hit a solid wall and stopped flying. She was hit so hard that she was embedded in the wall and couldn't move. Laura ran over quickly. She was worried, because a lot of blood was flowing out of the gap in Mindy's facial armor. Laura ran to Mindy and took off her mask. Mindy was coughing up blood, and a long wound appeared on her forehead because of the collision just now. Mindy was confused. Laura, am I going to die? In front of Mindy, Laura became a blurry ball. If it weren't for the protection of the power armor, Mindy would probably be dead. Is Sebastian a good character? He is the Black Emperor. He is one of the top mutants on the entire Earth. You are not dead yet? Although I haven't used my full strength, I didn't expect that you, a stinky kid, have a strong ability to withstand blows. Sebastian's spirit is really a little perverted. Bullying the kid makes him feel much more comfortable. But it's good this way. It looks like we can have more fun. Ah. Laura roared and grabbed the Gauss electromagnetic rifle in Mindy's hand and fired fiercely at Sebastian. But it didn't have any effect. The Gauss electromagnetic rifle was useless when it hit Sebastian and couldn't cause any harm to him. This is the ability of the Black Emperor, energy absorption. Sebastian can absorb all kinds of energy and store it in his body, and then react to it. Whether it is thermal energy, kinetic energy, electromagnetic energy, radiation energy, etc., Sebastian can absorb all kinds of energy. Until Laura used up all the bullets of the 2 Gauss electromagnetic rifles, she couldn't cause any real harm to Sebastian. Sebastian just sneered at Laura. What? No firepower? Why don't you try to escape? Maybe I will let you go. Laura's eyes were fierce, and the adamantium claws stretched out. The power armor was at its maximum output and rushed towards Sebastian at a speed of more than 300 kilometers per hour. You are brave, Sebastian said dryly, but your action is reckless. Sebastian punched Laura head-on, and the energy burst out like a tsunami. Sebastian would definitely return the damage Laura had just given Sebastian. But Laura, who originally looked like a frontal attack, suddenly accelerated and turned to avoid Sebastian's frontal attack. Instead, she attacked Sebastian from the left, and Laura took out a high-frequency knife that had been hidden behind her power armor and turned it to the maximum power. But Laura and Sebastian crossed each other, and her attack worked. Laura scratched a bloody mark on Sebastian's neck, but it was not deep enough and could only be regarded as a superficial wound. Okay, This guy can get hurt too. Laura encouraged herself in her heart. But this wound also completely angered Sebastian, and he touched the shallow wound on his neck. He was expressionless now, but he rushed towards Laura at a speed faster and more violent than Laura's attack on him. His fists were fully fired, and the shadows of his fists were like waves, and wherever he passed was like a typhoon. Laura tried her best to dodge, but Sebastian was too strong. At least too strong for Laura and Mindy. Laura couldn't dodge Sebastian's attack even if she tried her best. She was hit on the left shoulder by Sebastian and flew higher and farther than Mindy. When she landed, she rolled on the ground for at least 10 meters before stopping. Laura's powered exoskeleton was originally weaker than Mindy's in defense. Now her armor has been completely shattered, and the bones of the entire left half of her body have been broken. There is a huge wound on her left shoulder. If she was not Wolverine's daughter, if she did not have Logan's super recovery ability, Mindy would probably be dead now. But even so, she is now barely breathing. Laura had completely fainted now. In the final analysis, a strong man of the level of Black Emperor Sebastian was not something they could contend with at the moment. They were only using a powered exoskeleton, not the nano-armor that Tony Stark had recently developed. Okay, brats, the game is over. The shallow wound on Sebastian's neck had healed. He said this expressionlessly. He had decided to end it all now. At least he had finally eliminated these 3 annoying brats. Wait, 3? When Sebastian was thinking this, a micro-missile suddenly exploded behind him. Sebastian was blown away by the sudden explosion, and David, who was watching from a distance, didn't know what the outcome of his battle was. But he couldn't wait any longer, because if he waited any longer, Mindy and Laura might really die. So David put down a handicraft product he found in the secret compartment of the 2 girls and ran towards the 2 girls. Oh, damn. Mindy and Laura are in a bad situation. I should notify the Night Watch. David has a good relationship with Lee G, so he has the contact information of the Night Watch. He has an emergency button. After pressing it, he can notify the Night Watch Alliance and tell them that he is in a very dangerous situation and needs support. Damn. Why are their armors so heavy? Kick-Ass dragged Mindy and Laura with great effort, even though he has been practicing the key taught to him by the stick old man for 2 years. Although Kick-Ass's strength is very great now, he still finds it very difficult to drag the 2 girls. Because the power armor on them is too heavy. But David didn't dare to take off their armor. Because it is obvious that the power armor has a certain wrapping effect on them and can help fix the wound. Now Kick-Ass just wants to move the 2 girls to a safe place. But while David was doing all this, Sebastian, who was blown away by him and didn't know where he went, suddenly appeared and stood in front of David. He is now a little embarrassed because his clothes have a lot of tattered places after being blown away by the sudden attack. Kick-Ass's surprise attack has some effect. Although it was impossible to inflict much damage on Sebastian, he was still injured, although they were all minor wounds. Put them both down. Sebastian looked down at Kick-Ass, then kneel down, and I will make your death more comfortable. Never. David let go of the 2 girls, and he pulled out his stick from behind, his eyes determined not to back down. Chapter 1171 I am a hero. Never. David pulled out his 2 sticks and blocked Sebastian. His eyes were firm and he would never give in. Get out of here. Sebastian growled, but what he got in return was a fierce attack from David's 2 sticks. After learning stick techniques and internal energy from the stick master for more than 2 years, Kick-Ass is no longer the same as before. In terms of combat power, he is stronger than his senior brother, Daredevil Matt. The stick techniques that the stick master passed on to David did not have a crazy and cool name, and it was not something like Panlong stick technique or Dinjan stick technique. The stick master called the stick techniques that he gave to David basic stick technique, and the internal energy training method that he gave to David was simply called breathing method. The stick master did not like to play with empty words, and he did not like to use names to highlight how strong the content of his education was. Instead, he hoped that David could lay a good foundation. The foundation is the root of everything. Only when your foundation is more solid can you climb to a higher peak. The old man said this to David at the time. In the past 2 years, David has been practicing basic skills according to the old man's words, without slacking off for a day. Although David is still a big kid, he is very playful and likes to read comics and games, but whenever he slacks off, he always looks at the posters he has posted in his room. They are all posters of superheroes, including Captain America, Iron Man, Nightcrawler, Spider-Man, etc. They are all his idols, and he is motivated and vows to become the same as them in the future. He does not have superhuman talents, mutant energy, super wisdom, or a fortune of tens of billions of dollars. If he wants to become a superhero, he can only rely on his own efforts and uninterrupted training. His ideal is to become a truly outstanding person, a real superhero. He has the steps, and now it is his turn to climb. David's efforts were seen by the old man, unlike the other two disciples. The first two disciples of the old man, Rock and Matt, both had a wall of anger in their hearts. They all have too many dissatisfactions with the world, and have their own dark sides in their hearts. But David isn't. David is very simple. He used to be bullied in school, but after gaining the ability, he did not have ambitions to bully those who had bullied him. Instead, he used his ability to form the Justice League. Although it was just a small organization at the beginning, what it did was just to protect the community park. But in the past 2 years, it has developed into the most influential civil organization in New York. Although what it does is still insignificant, more and more people have joined in. It is just as the old saying goes, gathering sand makes a tower, and dripping water wears away a stone. So in a conversation with David, the stick man said to him, "You will become my most outstanding disciple." "No, Master. I'm still far away." Compared with the achievements of the two senior brothers, David wanted to be humble. You don't need to be humble, because you have something they don't have. Your enthusiasm and childlike heart are the most precious things in this world. Keep your original intention well, and what do you think from the first time you do chivalrous justice? Although the stick man can't see with his eyes, his mind is very transparent. It seemed as if he could guess everything David was thinking. "I just wanted to help others." David recalled his first time doing justice. At that time, he went out for the first time wearing a tight uniform. He was just pretending to be a superhero, but he didn't have superpowers. He passed by the door of a convenience store and saw 3 thugs trying to rob and beat a passerby. He stepped forward to stop them, and he didn't think much at the time. He didn't think about whether he could beat the 3 thugs, nor did he think about whether he would be beaten up. The only thing he thought about at the time was that this person needed help. There were so many people watching around, and they would rather use their mobile phones to record everything, but no one was willing to help the beaten gentleman. At that time, he just wanted to help others without thinking too much. So he rushed forward to stop these people, and this was also the turning point of his life. The old man with the stick nodded. "Yes, many things in this world are so simple. Help those who need help and maintain the order that needs to be maintained. There are not too many considerations of interests, nor are there any fears of power. Although your passion may not be recognized by others, many mercenary people will regard what you do as a fool's stubbornness. But there are too many smooth people in this world, and too few are willing to be stubborn for justice and justice. Stay true to yourself. You don't need to care about what anyone else thinks of you. When the time is right, I will take you to a place where you can accept your test." The old man with the stick touched David's head after saying this. David was a little puzzled. "What test?" The old man with the stick smiled. "You will know when the time comes." Perhaps it was because David had this stubborn spirit that he was not afraid when facing Sebastian. Even though he had just seen how strong Sebastian was, Mindy and Laura didn't even have the strength to fight back in front of him. And they were wearing powered exoskeletons. But even so, he met his friend behind him. Maybe he couldn't beat Sebastian, but David still chose to show his sword. Although David was only swinging 2 sticks, it seemed as if hundreds of short sticks were swinging at the same time. 2 metal short sticks were swung in front of David, leaving a shadow. Tisk. Facing David's attack, Sebastian was very disdainful. Compared with the 2 girls, David's attack seemed much weaker. It seemed that the shadows of the sticks in the sky were very strong, but could they be stronger than 2 gauze electromagnetic guns? Could they be more powerful than high-frequency particle knives? No. Although David's stick shadows were dim, his swinging attacks were still at the level of mortals. At most, he could only be regarded as a relatively outstanding mortal. At most, he was at the level of Captain America. Sebastian was too lazy to dodge. The ability of the Black Emperor is to absorb energy and counterattack. Sebastian was ready to let David compete with his own strength directly. So he chose not to dodge, and then absorbed David's energy and fed it back. In an instant, hundreds of stick shadows had turned from virtual to real and hit Sebastian. Sebastian was still sneering. But soon he found something wrong. Wait. Why is there a strange energy on his stick that I can't absorb? Yes, after more than 2 years of training, David's key training technique has been slightly improved. The stickmaster told David that if the contemporary Iron Fist did not use the power of the dragon and only relied on his own internal energy, he might not be much stronger than David. Because David practiced without distractions, his mind was pure and upright, and he was the best candidate to practice this breathing technique. Now David can conduct his internal energy into his stick to increase the lethality. Under normal circumstances, he would not do this, because most ordinary people would die if they were hit like this. But the opponent was Sebastian, so David didn't care so much. And Sebastian didn't expect this to happen. Now he can absorb the kinetic energy damage caused by David swinging the short stick, but he can't eliminate the damage caused by the internal energy. Because of a small mistake, for the first time since the war, Sebastian suffered a real blow. Hundreds of stick shadows hit Sebastian's body and caused damage. Bang, bang, bang. The short sticks hit Sebastian like a storm. Sebastian, who was still sneering, felt as if all the bones in his body were broken by David. David was also stunned. He also found the difference in Sebastian. Did he hurt Sebastian? Exclamation mark. David thought so and immediately increased the output of firepower. The short sticks greeted Sebastian's head. Now Black Emperor knew that this kick-ass king in a green uniform was strange. He couldn't really be hit by him. He couldn't absorb all his energy. David's short stick was caught by his big hand before it hit Sebastian's head. Get out of here. Sebastian was really angry and threw David far away. Originally, Sebastian planned to completely deal with the two girls first, and then slowly deal with the young man who had just hurt him. But just as he was about to attack the unconscious Mindy, two short sticks came whistling, and Sebastian dodged them by leaning sideways. Then, David, who was running at full speed like a cheetah, hit Sebastian's stomach hard with the shoulder charge of a spear. David was now trying his best, and his internal energy was running to the limit. He had never felt so powerful before. He was faster than a cheetah, more powerful than a grizzly bear, and more agile than a fox. He felt that he could do anything. Bang! Sebastian's punch hit David's stomach hard, instantly breaking his fantasy. Even though his internal energy was already overloaded by 120%, he still couldn't resist Sebastian's attack. Just one punch had already shattered David's internal energy. And his internal organs felt like they were about to break. And in the sound of thunder and crackling, I don't know how many ribs were broken and how many pieces they were broken into. David, who was originally holding Sebastian because of the spear charge, had to let go of his hands. He fell to his knees on the ground powerlessly and vomited blood. HMPH. Sebastian straightened his wrinkled shirt, but some holes could not be fixed by straightening. Just when he was about to end it all, David, who was supposed to be lying on the ground and unable to stand up, stood up staggeringly. Get away. Stay away from them. Although his legs were shaking and blood could not stop flowing from his mouth, David still stood up and put on a boxing posture. Sebastian walked in front of David, and snapped. His left palm slapped David in the face, and David could not resist at all. He was beaten by Sebastian and turned around twice on the spot and knelt down again. At the same time, one of his cheeks was swollen. You should get out. Sebastian looked at David coldly. Before Sebastian took 2 steps, David, who was kneeling, stood up again. His internal energy was shattered, but he was still supporting him tenaciously. I said, never. It was even harder for David to stand up now. He needed to lean his thighs against each other and his calves to stand up. Get lost. Sebastian kicked David down. He was really mad at David. David was kicked down, and now he couldn't stand up. But he crawled tenaciously and picked up his stick. When Sebastian walked in front of Mindy, he hit Sebastian's calf with all his strength. But now David was on the verge of running out of energy. The force he hit Sebastian with all his strength was not much more than tickling. Sebastian looked at David, who was crawling on the ground with a bloody mark. The corner of his mouth twitched, and then he suddenly raised his foot and fell hard. Crack! Ah! David screamed, and one of his arms was completely broken and torn. Do you know you should get out of here now? Never. Never. Why? Because I'm a hero. David's consciousness gradually began to blur. Sebastian looked at David in a pool of blood, and curled his lips. Okay, hero. I'll do your thing. I'll step over your body. As he said this, he was ready to kill David first. He raised his fist high, and was about to bring it down hard to smash David's head like a watermelon. A loud shout came, "Sebastian, you dare!" Sebastian, who had roared like a bell in his life, was uneasy. "Vote for me." Chapter 1172. Just do it. A loud shout like a bell shocked Sebastian, and then a super strong laser beam directly knocked Sebastian out. Sebastian had just stood up when he saw 6 adamantium claws appear in front of him. Sebastian had just made way for the 6 adamantium claws when a series of long-range weapons burst out. Sebastian used his ability to absorb the kinetic damage, but he felt a strong force dragging his body, making him farther away from the 3 brats. When he was farther away, a rapid freezing ray came again. This time, Sebastian was frozen solid. Now Sebastian noticed what kind of situation he was facing. He looked around and saw a large group of people in front of him. Some were people he knew and some were not. Well, up to now, Sebastian didn't know how much trouble he had caused. Since Logan got a tip from the White Queen Emma that Laura and Mindy were in danger, Logan mobilized all the forces he could control and notified the Big Daddy and the Night Watch. Because the girls of the 2 families were so close, like sisters, Logan and several Big Daddy-level figures in the Night Watch also had a good relationship. They often contacted each other and gave gifts during festivals. This time, hearing that their daughters were in danger, both gangs were furious. Logan directly summoned his brothers and the X-Men. Although some X-Men were not at home on missions and were not convenient to come out. But after knowing that Laura was in danger, all the X-Men who were free and could come came. For example, Iceman, Cyclops Scott, Angel, Cannon, Gun, Blink, and Wolverine's own X-Men team of 7 people. On the other side, the Big Daddy Damon, Frank and Mike in the Night Watch also went out. Although it seems that the 3 of them are not strong in combat, they have help. Since they cooperated with Tony Stark during the last Battle of Hell and helped command a large-scale battle of the Iron Legion, the 3 of them have been in contact with Iron Man. This time, when they heard that their daughter was in danger, they contacted Tony directly for help. Although Tony and Luigi were dealing with the underwater people incident in the Atlantic Ocean at that time, he immediately approved the request of the 3. The little angel who is the flower girl at his wedding could not be harmed. More than 70 Iron Armor Legions were dispatched, commanded by Frank and the other 2. This time, Frank and others configured the Iron Legion's armor completely according to the mode of conducting a low-intensity war. There are assaulters, heavy fire support aircraft, and long-range snipers. The 3 of them wore command-type iron armor to have a comprehensive view of the situation. Spider-Man, who was originally studying the extremis virus potion and preparing to notify Luigi, also put down his research because of what happened suddenly. He followed the 3 fathers to the scene of the incident. Although Luigi in the Atlantic Ocean could not split up because he had to deal with Namor and Ultron. But he also said that if necessary, he could immediately transfer 100 space battleships as firepower volunteers. No matter how strong Sebastian's ability was, he could absorb energy and rebound, but he would still be defeated in the face of such fierce firepower and offensive. Not to mention the space battleships that had not yet arrived, just the guys who appeared in front of him now made Sebastian feel very overwhelmed. He knew all those mutants, and they were all very powerful. And those densely packed steel armors, more than 70 of them, did not look like imitations. They all had arc reactors on their chests, which were obviously genuine products made by Tony Stark. These people and these weapons combined can already push many countries flat. Even if all the elite members of the Hellfire Club were pulled out to fight together, it might not be guaranteed to win 100%. Sebastian has now been forced back by the Father Avengers and is far away from Mindy and the others. Spider-Man came to the 3 children with the spider silk. Damn, their injuries are very serious. Peter had to take out the emergency treatment potion he carried with him to treat the 3 people first and stop the bleeding. But this is far from enough. They need to get real professional treatment as soon as possible. Someone help me, I need to send them to the Medical Regeneration Center of the Osborn Group for treatment. Peter has already informed Harry and asked his doctors to prepare for rescue. But he needs someone to help him now. Although he wrapped the 3 children tightly with spider silk to prevent them from suffering injuries such as organ displacement, it is still very troublesome to transfer them safely. Now their injuries are too serious. If they are not transferred properly, they will cause secondary injuries. I'll help you. Flash suddenly appeared beside Spider-Man. Where are you going? The headquarters of the Osborn Medical Regeneration Center in New York. Peter reported a name, and Flash opened a space channel. Follow me. The two worked together to transfer the three children for treatment. The others were still besieging Sebastian, making him dare not move. Sebastian didn't know what happened yet. He had now broken free from the ice that Iceman had created for him. He looked around. Wolverine. Cyclops. What do you want to do? Could it be that the White Queen had already fallen in love with Cyclops, and then sold out her old lover in the blink of an eye? Exclamation mark. What do we want to do? I want to kill you. Wolverine glared at him. Now he was no longer the man who could only use brute force and claws to fight. After practicing Wrath of King Kong, Logan had vaguely had some strange visions, and his temper was getting better and better. But when he was the angry King Kong, a giant King Kong statue could be vaguely seen behind him. Although it was only a shadow, it brought a lot of pressure to Sebastian. You have to give me a reason. Our Hellfire Club and the X-Men have always kept their distance from each other. What do you want to do? Do you want to provoke a war between our two factions by bringing so many people here? Can you bear the responsibility of going to war with the Hellfire Club? Sebastian really didn't want to go to war with Logan and the others in this extremely unfavorable situation. So he wanted to use words to make Wolverine and the others retreat. Do you know who I am? I am the leader of the Hellfire Club, Black Emperor Sebastian. My comrades are all over the world. If you are against me today, you are against the entire Hellfire Club. Do you really want to do this? Sebastian looked around. He felt that he was very domineering. No one around responded. Big Daddy and the others just asked Iron Man to do the final check. Cyclops adjusted his glasses, Grunt clenched his fist, and Iceman spit out frost. After a few seconds, Flash came back again. Everyone looked at her, and she shook her head. The injuries of the three children are very serious. Laura is fine, and her wounds are recovering. Mindy's brain was hit and she is being rescued. The worst is the child named Kick-Ass. Almost all his bones are broken, and his internal organs are seriously displaced. Spider-Man is taking care of them. The doctor said that it is difficult to cure the child named Kick-Ass. Later, the master of the child named Kick-Ass also went to the hospital. He said that the child's Ki-Hai, Jin-Mai, are almost all broken, and he may become a disabled person in the future. Now Spider-Man and the old man named Stick are taking care of the three children in the hospital. The good news that Flash brought back was not good. Sebastian was left aside by Wolverine and others and no one paid attention to him. He thought his intimidation had worked, and he said, I don't care what relationship you have with those little ghosts, but if you want to start a war, kill him. He was interrupted by Wolverine before he finished speaking. Wolverine Logan's roar was like a signal. Everyone who was waiting for the signal to start the war exerted their strongest firepower. Absolute Zero, Death Ray, Metal Wings, Palm Cannon, Ultra-High Frequency Voltage Gun, Anti-Ship Cruise Missiles. In a word, who cares who you are now? What Black Emperor and White Emperor, just kill them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 1173 Happy Father's Day. The Father Avengers Alliance will tell whether they are strong or not once they make a move. This is not the Avengers Alliance, a second-rate superhero organization of S.H.I.E.L.D. This group of Father Avengers Alliance has more ferocious strength, a wider circle of friends, and more abundant capital. Once these people unite to do something, they will really kill gods and Buddhas. Anyway, Sebastian really regretted being born in this world at this moment. Although he is the Black Emperor, although he is very strong. But he is not invincible. He will still get hurt and bleed. Facing the bombardment of this group of Father Avengers, Sebastian still cannot change his fate of being beaten in the end even if he uses his energy absorption and reflection to the limit. Because there is an upper limit to his absorption and transformation of energy. When the energy he can absorb and transform reaches his upper limit, Sebastian is already on the verge of collapse. The X-Men understand this characteristic of Sebastian, or Professor X Charles understands this characteristic. Professor Charles was unable to come here because of the Atlantic Ocean Undersea Man incident, but he could remotely instruct his students on how to deal with Black Emperor Sebastian. Now that the fight has come to this, don't consider whether to go to war with the Hellfire Club, because it will definitely be fought. In this case, Just kill Black Emperor quickly, and save the Hellfire Club from having a leader in the future, which will be even more troublesome. And now the White Queen seems to want to switch to the X-Men. In the future, the Hellfire Club will be a mess without a leader. As long as there is no Black Emperor and the White Queen, these guys who are out of date are not to be feared at all. So since Wolverine and the others have already started the war, just get rid of Black Emperor directly. It can be said that sometimes the old bald man who looks amiable is actually a far-sighted guy. He calculated very carefully, so Black Emperor really didn't even have the chance to turn the tables this time. Cyclops' laser was turned to maximum power, and the laser beam filled the sky with red light. Even the white clouds in the night sky were dyed red. Iceman's Absolute Zero was controlled with great precision, and Absolute Zero areas kept appearing around Sebastian. As long as Sebastian was not careful, he would fall into the ice trap. Wolverine's close combat made Sebastian lose his temper. Because Logan also had the same strange energy as Kick-Ass, this energy was something Sebastian could not digest and absorb. At the same time, Wolverine's energy was even more powerful than Kick-Ass. This made Sebastian even more exhausted. In addition, more than 70 steel armors were bombarding without interruption, as well as some involvement in attacks from other people. Sebastian felt that he could not hold on for only 10 minutes, and he wanted to escape. But could he escape? More than 70 steel armors were patrolling in the sky, and the X-Men on the ground blocked all retreat routes. Even if he could get into the ground, Flash would still pull him out of the soil. Now he could be said to have no way to go up to the sky and down to the earth. After holding on for less than half an hour, Sebastian could no longer hold on. He no longer looked like the domineering Black Emperor. Half of his hair had been burned off, and the other half was frozen with ice chips. His originally majestic face now looked extremely funny. One eye socket was purple and the other was blue. The purple one was caused by Wolverine's punch, and the blue one was caused by the punch from the grunt. His left calf was comminuted fractured. That was caused by Big Daddy and the other two seizing an opportunity and using 10 steel armors to continuously attack his left calf weakness. His shirt was completely burned, and even his underwear was burned to pieces. This was done by Cyclops Scott. He had been unhappy with Sebastian for a long time. The right shoulder blade and the entire right hand were cut into 4 pieces, which was another masterpiece of Wolverine. When he resisted to the last moment, Angel and Flash cooperated with Big Daddy, Frank and Mike. The 3 of them grabbed Sebastian, while Big Daddy and Frank were on the left and right, each holding a gauze electromagnetic rifle. They didn't shoot at Sebastian, but took turns hitting Sebastian's face with the butt of the rifle. The face, which was not handsome but at least had regular features, was smashed to pieces. I asked you to hit my Mindy. Bang! Big Daddy on the left took a turn and hit Sebastian hard. You should know that the gauze electromagnetic rifle is a very heavy and strong weapon. The shell of the butt is made of a metal mixed with secondary adamantium and another alloy, which is very hard. A gauze electromagnetic rifle is heavier than a traditional anti-material sniper rifle, and a gun weighs at least more than 50 kilograms. Sebastian no longer has the strength to use his ability. His current absorption and conversion ability has already exceeded the upper limit and saturated in the previous battle. Now the ability is close to the level of rupture, just like David can't use internal energy in every inch of his meridians. Big Daddy smashed Sebastian's face with the butt of his gun, and it was deformed instantly. The left cheekbone was completely shattered, and the strong squeezing force completely crushed Sebastian's nose bridge. After Big Daddy finished beating him, it was Frank on the right. This one is for Laura. Bang! Another violent collision, this time it was Sebastian's mouth. Wog! Sebastian spurted out a mouthful of blood, mixed with more than a dozen teeth. I let you show off by blocking the Black Emperor. Bang! This is the left side. I let you bully children. Bang! This is the right side. I let you be awesome. Bang! Once again on the left side. This one is for Kick-Ass. Bang! Once again on the right side. The other 3 people who were holding Sebastian were almost unable to bear it. The Black Emperor was too miserable now, and he had no connection with him at all. He was now like a rag doll being beaten up. Get out of the way. Wolverine pushed Big Daddy and Frank away, and he stood in front of Sebastian. Sebastian, who was kneeling, could hardly see anything through his glasses because his retina had been detached. And his eyes were swollen like peaches. He could only barely recognize that the person in front of him was Wolverine. He used up his last bit of strength to say, "Logan, why? Why? Logan grabbed the collar of Black Emperor Sebastian, because the three children you just beat up, one of them is my daughter and her two best friends. Logan stretched out his steel claws. Sebastian mustered up his last bit of strength. You can't kill me. I am the Black Emperor. If you kill me, it will start a total war. Total war? I don't care. I tell you, Sebastian, when you have the idea of touching my daughter, you are already dead, understand? Logan's words were extremely cold. No, I am the Black Emperor. Go to hell and be your Black Emperor. Puff, the sharp blade pierced into the heart. Logan rotated the claws, and Sebastian let out a heart-wrenching scream. No, you can't. Of course I can. Go to hell, you villain. The other three claws stretched out, and tore. Sebastian was split into two by Logan. The once famous Black Emperor died in the hands of a group of Father's Revenge Alliance, with no dignity and extremely aggrieved death. He didn't even understand who he had provoked until the last moment, and Sebastian always felt that these guys were unreasonable. Is it necessary to kill himself for just a small matter? With a last question, the two pieces of Sebastian's body lay on the ground. Bah! Frank spat a mouthful of thick phlegm on Sebastian. You got it easy, bastard. I think you should learn what Happy Father's Day means in your next life. Chapter 1174, Rescue Kick-Ass. Sebastian was finally cut in two by Logan, and his body was poured with gasoline by Big Daddy and Frank, burned to ashes and thrown into the Pacific Ocean. The Black Emperor passed away. Not only did he die without a complete body, but he also had no place to be buried, and there was no possibility of erecting a tombstone for him. Although the father's enemies have given up their anger, some things cannot be changed after they have happened. That is, now the three children are on the verge of death after suffering a crazy blow from Sebastian. Because Spider-Man Peter Parker and Harry Osborn are close friends, when Peter brought the three children to the Osborn Medical Center, Harry had already prepared the most effective rescue measures for them. The top medical team and various medicines are ready. Laura should be the one with the lightest injury, because although she was hit through the shoulder blade by Sebastian and half of her body was shattered. But because she has Logan's blood and superpowers, her own wounds began to recover quickly under the treatment of superpowers. After some basic treatment and hemostasis, all that was left was to replenish the nutrients lost by Laura's body. She could heal herself. Mindy's injury was a little more serious than Laura's. After all, she did not have the ability to recover by herself. She had to rely on external medical equipment for surgery. Fortunately, she was wearing a powered exoskeleton made of secondary adamantium alloy at the time. This exoskeleton was originally a strong and thick-skinned root, so it helped Mindy to resist a lot of damage. And with the power exoskeleton, Mindy also reduced the secondary damage caused by movement. Although a lot of bones were broken, because of the external armor wrapping, Mindy fixed the broken bones like a plasterboard. The worst of the three should be Kick-Ass. David did not wear any powered exoskeleton. He took several punches from Sebastian in several confrontations. Although Sebastian could not absorb his energy, he did not suffer more pain from using his power to fight back. But Sebastian's strength alone was enough for David to bear. His condition was the worst, with more than half of his bones broken, a lot of internal bleeding, and a very serious blow to his head. For his current condition, the paramedics at Osborn Medical Center can only say that they can do their best and leave it to fate. How is the child now? Outside the emergency room, everyone else dispersed first. But the four father enemies were still there: Damon, Mike, Frank, and Logan. The four of them had checked on Mindy and Laura. The two girls were out of danger and their conditions were stable and improving. They also had to come and see how the boy who helped their daughters, the child named Kick-Ass David, was doing. Although this child was not very strong, he was very stubborn. If he hadn't helped delay Sebastian, it is very likely that Mindy and Laura would have met with misfortune before the father enemies arrived. Kick-Ass is in the worst condition now, so they are all a little worried. Outside Kick-Ass's emergency room, Spider-Man and Kick-Ass's master, Stixo, were standing outside the door. Facing the four father enemies who came to ask, Peter shook his head, not very optimistic. The doctor came out once before. They have been giving David blood transfusions and surgery, and he has almost no good bones now. The worst thing is his internal organs, which have also suffered a great blow. If it weren't for the fact that Kick-Ass learned a kung fu called Chi from this master stick, he would probably be dead now. It was Chi that protected David before, so that he didn't die directly from Sebastian's fist. The Stickmaster standing next to Spider-Man was silent. The Stickmaster was already very old, he was an old man. And now the situation faced by Kick-Ass made him look even more worried, which made him look even older. The four father enemies saluted the Stickmaster to show respect. Logan said, "Thank you for your disciple. If it weren't for him, my daughter would suffer misfortune. Now your daughter is saved, but David's father is likely to lose his only son." The Stickmaster spoke in a dry tone. These harsh words made the four father haters at a loss for words. Although the old man with the stick couldn't see, he had his own eyes. He knew that these people were embarrassed, so he said, "You feel embarrassed? Actually, I am more embarrassed. If something happens to David, how should I explain to David's father?" Putting themselves in his shoes, the four father haters understood the old man's worries. Is it so dangerous? Is there no way to cure him? Mike couldn't help but speak. Because the atmosphere was so depressing, it made people feel uncomfortable. Does the Osborn Group have limb regeneration technology? Can't they repair David's injuries? Listening to Mike's question, Peter shook his head helplessly. Limb regeneration is ultimately a medical technology. It is not like the divine magic in computer games where the healer can cast a healing magic to cure all diseases and remove all negative states. Medical technology has its limitations. It is very difficult to use this technology to completely cure David, because limb regeneration is to restore broken limbs by dividing cells. In essence, it is a choice made by consuming part of the human body's life potential. Would you rather live to 65 years old with a broken leg, or would you rather live 5 years less and live to 60 years old with both legs intact? Limb regeneration is a treatment method that chooses one of the two. Peter explained the essence of limb regeneration. David's current physical condition is very bad, and he can't support the method of cell division to repair himself. This will only make him die faster. So, Peter didn't say anything more, but his words were already very clear. The old man with a stick stood up and strode out of the hospital. Peter asked the stick man from behind, "Where are you going?" "To find someone who can save David. If technology doesn't work, use metaphysics. David is the best disciple I have ever accepted, and he shouldn't die like this." The stick man disappeared from everyone's sight. The father's enemies sighed, and Damon, the big dad, couldn't help but hold his forehead. Is there really no way? If we can save him, we are willing to help. We can do anything. The other father's enemies nodded in agreement. After all, Kick-Ass was injured so badly for the two girls. Peter gritted his teeth. "Okay, there is actually one more, but it is a little risky. I'm not sure if I should do it." He thought of his previous research, the research on the extremis virus. If his research is correct, although this potion may have various defects, it is very likely to be a potion that can save David. In the solar system, the small spaceship of the Black Dwarf did not alarm the defense arranged by the Venus fleet. Because this spaceship was built by Thanos himself, there are few radars that it cannot avoid. Looking at the Earth getting closer and closer, Black Dwarf couldn't help but say, "Is this the water-colored planet? Lord Thanos' child is here? It seems that I need to prepare to observe the Earth carefully." Chapter 1175 The Terrible Earthlings. The spaceship that Black Dwarf was riding on was made by Thanos himself, so it can be said to be very advanced. At least the radar of the Illuminati can't detect it. After all, it's Thanos. If it doesn't even have this little technology, how can it be the overlord of the universe? However, the number of warships made by Thanos himself is still small. If all the warships are made by Thanos and he's willing to spend the same amount of money as this warship, then other civilizations don't have to play, and Thanos' Black Order can destroy them all. But this is just a thought. Thanos can't invest so many resources in his own hands. It's impossible to waste such a powerful force. In addition to Thanos himself, only his 5 obsidian generals can get some items made by Thanos himself. For example, warships and weapons. After passing through various radar scanning areas set up by the Illuminati, Black Dwarf successfully came to the sky above the Earth and controlled his spaceship to land slowly. But the area where he landed was over the Atlantic Ocean. Originally, Black Dwarf was going to land on the seabed first, because the spaceship was hidden on the seabed and it was very suitable for hiding. But when he was about to do so, the sea suddenly stirred up a storm. A huge underwater base emerged from the depths of the ocean. Then tens of thousands of underwater people appeared with various weapons, and there were dual-purpose spacecraft. Black Dwarf was scared. Fortunately, he did not land on the sea rashly, Otherwise he would have directly collided with the enemy's army? Exclamation mark. Wait. Doesn't the intelligence show that the Earthlings are a weak land creature? Why can they still live in the sea? Black Dwarf had a lot of question marks on his head, so he decided to hide secretly and observe what happened here. Then he saw that the underwater people were going to go to war with the land people. Well, it's really complicated. Does this planet still have to be divided into the land faction and the underwater faction? And it seems that these underwater people are well equipped. At least they have left the primitive hot weapon civilization and are already at the level of the middle stage of the primary civilization, or even higher. Black Dwarf silently gave a score to the level of the underwater people. He originally thought that the underwater people were going to have a big fight with the land people. In the end, they seemed to have reconciled and stopped fighting. I originally wanted to evaluate the other party's combat effectiveness, but it's really boring. Just as Black Dwarf was about to leave, the Ultron crisis was born. Thousands of Ultron Sentinel robots appeared, and a crazy fight broke out. Is this an omnic crisis? Black Dwarf looked at the suddenly appeared Ultron Sentinel in disbelief, and he almost lost his voice. This is a phenomenon that requires at least the highest level of primary civilization, and even the second-level civilization may not appear. Isn't the Earth a civilization that is not developed and relies on the Nova Corps to survive? Although the general of the previous Chitauri fleet sent back some news before his death about their ambush near the Earth. But because of the intervention of the Nova Corps later, whether it was the general, the leader of the Chitauri, or the Black Dwarf, everyone regarded this as a conspiracy of the Nova Corps. They may have been eyeing the Chitauri expeditionary force for a long time, and the Earth was just a decoy. It is very likely that the defense systems in the solar system belong to the Nova Corps. They are definitely planning to trap a group of Chitauri or even Skrulls. Black Dwarf always thought that his analysis was correct, but he didn't think about it. If it was really as he thought, why did Thanos tell him before he came out, "Don't make too much noise on Earth, kill my legitimate child and come back"? Black Dwarf is not a very smart person. If the underwater people and Ultron Sentinels only surprised him, then the sudden appearance of a large number of space battleships shocked him. This is an interstellar battleship that jumped directly from space into the atmosphere. This is at least the morphological characteristics of the late stage of the second-level civilization. They open fire. The firepower is really fierce. Black Dwarf felt that he was greatly shocked. He can now be sure that these battleships are definitely not from the Nova Corps, because these battleships are clearly marked with numbers. And as far as he knows about the Nova Corps, no team in the Corps uses this representation and number. The numbers above are more like the indigenous characters on Earth. Yes, that's right, Arabic numerals are the native language of the Earth. Black Dwarf felt that he should leave the Earth as soon as possible after dealing with his illegitimate son, as Thanos said. So Black Dwarf sneaked away from the battlefield in the Atlantic Ocean. He wanted to find a place to secretly stop his spaceship, disguise himself, and then find the illegitimate son and leave as soon as possible. Because Black Dwarf found that the Earth was also dangerous to him. Although it is not the most dangerous planet. Although they have interstellar battleships and an intelligence crisis has broken out. But fortunately, the bodies of Earthlings are generally weak. Black Dwarf muttered to himself while parking his spaceship somewhere in Texas, USA. At the same time, he made himself look like an Earthling. This camouflage technique is also a technological product of the Dark Order, because Thanos is also a person who likes to use his brain instead of rushing all the way. Sometimes war also requires infiltration and spies, and the Dark Order still knows these basic camouflage techniques. But because Black Dwarf is too tall, so even with all kinds of disguises and injections, his disguise as an Earthling is already very eye-catching, because it is rare to see an Earthling who is 2 meters and 2 meters tall and looks as strong as a small mountain. Black Dwarf picked up the detector and prepared to start tracking the signal source of Thanos' illegitimate child. This signal detector was also invented by Thanos, specifically used to hunt his own children. Because Thanos' bloodline is very special, there is a strange signal. So when Sion, son of Thanos, awakened, the Ancient One on Earth felt his power and thought that Thanos had come. Black Dwarf took the detector to track the source of the signal and walked all the way to a small town in Texas. He shook his head. Well, I don't quite understand this thing. Should it go this way? Or another direction? Black Dwarf looked down at the signal tracker but didn't look at the road carefully, and as a result, He directly knocked over a fat lady in front of him. Black Dwarf didn't even look at the fat lady and left on his own. Don't you look at the road when you walk? The fat lady was very annoyed. This person is so rude. He didn't even say sorry after bumping into someone. Just because you are strong, can you bully fat people as you please? Exclamation mark. The fat lady blocked Black Dwarf's way. Black Dwarf frowned and said, "Get out of here, you fat creature." The fat lady. "You, how dare you?" Her expression changed from disbelief to anger and then to ferociousness in just 3 seconds. Fat people are forbidden to speak in the United States. Especially what Black Dwarf said just now was obviously discriminatory. What is a fat creature? Am I not a human being just because I am fat? Do you think I don't want to lose weight? If I could buy the genuine X Beauty Potion series of non-fat potion, I would have lost weight like a flash of lightning, okay? I was even deceived into buying a few boxes of pirated goods, which were useless. You dare to laugh at me now? I will fight you to the death. The fat lady was really angry. The fat lady thought so and did so. She rushed towards Black Dwarf with her teeth and claws bared in anger. Black Dwarf was impatient. Such a weak creature. In the Atlantic Ocean, Ultron already knew that he had no way out, and now he was afraid that he was going to die. But even if he died, he would take someone with him. Ultron activated the last trump card he had. Texas, USA. Originally, Black Dwarf didn't care about the fat lady rushing towards him. He didn't know how many of these weak creatures he could slap away with one slap. But when the fat lady got closer and closer, Black Dwarf suddenly felt something was wrong, as if something was wrong. Because he felt that the aura of the guy opposite, who looked particularly weak, seemed to be getting stronger little by little. She began to glow and heat up. Then her fist really hit Black Dwarf like a beam of fire. At the moment when Black Dwarf flew backwards, he thought to himself, "Aren't the people on Earth very weak?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.